All right, welcome to Reality Check. It is the Wednesday. It's the midday edition of Reality Check here on the home of Black Talk Media. It is none other than WURD. We are live in Philly proper on 96.1 FM, 900 AM. Throughout the nation, throughout the world, you can hear us on our live stream at wordradio.com, also Word TV and Word app as well. I'm Charles Ellison. I'm your host, executive producer, also creator of Reality Check, your daily dose of public affairs here on WURD. You can reach me on twitter.com at Ellison Report, also see Ellison at wordradio.com if you'd like to reach me by email, send information. They're joining us at the top of this midday hour. At the top of this 10 o'clock hour is Pennsylvania House Minority Leader Joanna McClinton, also state representative representing the 191st Legislative District in the state, or the Commonwealth rather, of Pennsylvania. That's including Delaware and Philadelphia counties. For more on her, particularly if you're a constituent, you can go to pahouse.com/McClinton. She's joining us via Skype from Harrisburg, in fact, from the Minority Leader's office in Harrisburg right now. You can watch her on Word TV. Madam Leader, how are you doing?
Good morning, Charles. It's great to be here in 2021. How are you today?
All right, good. It's good to see you. Good to see that you're safe as well. A lot going on. I know there's a lot on your plate, so I do appreciate your time this morning, as do others as well. In case anyone has a question for you, Madam Leader, just leave that phone line open at 215-634-8065. Toll free, it is 866-361-0900. Let's get your thoughts, Madam Leader, on the governor's proposed budget that he's announced, particularly the budget with respect to education, schools in Pennsylvania. That seems quite ambitious. Well, at least it's ambitious, especially in terms of raising the personal income tax in the Commonwealth to fund, to add nearly $2 billion to the school's budget. What's your thought on that? Is this ambitious enough? Is this also something that will equalize school funding in the Commonwealth?
So thank you for having me today, Charles. It is very exciting on budget day. Of course, we had to rearrange the schedule due to the inclement weather, but I'm glad to have made it up here safely. And we are going to hear from Governor Wolf at 11:30 in a joint session. It'll be virtual. He's going to be on the screen, and everybody else can watch it live at pa.gov. But Governor Wolf is taking Pennsylvania towards equity. And when I say equity, you know, the listeners know what that means. It doesn't mean equality, but it means being able to balance things out so that there's not one area that gets more resources than another. And for years, Pennsylvania has ranked at the bottom for the school funding. You know, we have inequitable funding. We are in one of those states where, depending on the property taxes, you either have a tremendously great school district or you have what's left. It's very little in between. And Governor Wolf's budget plans to make funding fully equitable, send every single dollar through the fair funding formula that started 6 years ago, because we only have a small percentage now that goes through that formula. So this new budget will send every single dollar through it so that there are less discrepancies. And most importantly, Charles, the school districts that don't need the extra help from the state, we are long overdue for writing them the same check. That's a phrase called hold harmless. It's in our Constitution, and it's something that has never changed. But there are many districts that have enough taxes that they don't need help from the state. And then we have districts like where I live and serve in Philly, Delco, William Penn School District, that are literally struggling trying to educate our children.
Yeah. You know, we were talking about that yesterday. We had a guest on, an expert, who was talking about, one, how we need to prioritize the K through 12 education conversation. And not, this is, you know, obviously this applies to PA, but just nationally, we need to prioritize that conversation, because you can't really take care of all those other issues and challenges and struggles unless you completely equalize education. And we're not seeing that just yet. So I guess the governor trying to do this here. Also for pandemic, I was real curious. There's education, there's also pandemic relief, a big reliance on bonds. There's a $4.5 billion bond that the governor is proposing to pay back over 20 years. You know, in addition to a tax on the Marcellus shale industry, that always comes up, it seems like, the taxing the shale industry, the natural gas industry in the Commonwealth. That never seems to work out or get fleshed out. Do we think that there's something different in the air this year that can have the governor successfully push that through?
What's different this year is that this is the fourth year that we have a structural deficit and it only grows. We are underfunded by about $4 billion. So that means that we don't have enough to pay what we would just normally pay for services, for employees, for types of things, whether it's Medicare, whether it is, SNAP benefits, things that are state benefits that we pay for. We don't have the money to pay for it, even for schools. So what I think would be different this time is that we have to realize that this multi-billion-dollar industry, the gas industry that's extracting gas to heat homes and to, do other things with petroleum, they are making a lot of money. And Pennsylvania is the only state that does not either have a larger impact fee, because that's what was established under Governor Corbett, or an tax. Compared to where we are, we're at about 3%. West Virginia, where they also are drilling all the time, they're at 5.5%. So we're missing out on money that these companies can afford to pay. We know that they do a lot locally in rural Pennsylvania, where a lot of these places are located. They pave roads, they employ people, they train them on how to work there. And that's great. But we want to see an expansion of that. We want to see clean energy jobs. We want to see reinvestment. And if they're not going to, give us any money, because there's no corporation out there that's going to say, hey, is Pennsylvania in need of assistance? Let's write you a check. We have to do what we need to do under the dome so that they must pay their fair share.
I have to ask this, though, Leader. The natural gas, the fossil fuel industry overall has taken a hit during pandemic because, especially in the earlier days of the pandemic during lockdown, fewer people finding a need to go anywhere, right? And so there was a dramatic drop, at least in the early days of the pandemic during lockdown, in emissions. And I've seen those numbers. I've seen across the board, all energy industries, or all throughout the energy sector. I mean, all industries have taken a hit in terms of employment, in terms of sliding revenues. So how much can we how much can we rely on an industry, on a fossil fuel industry, especially as we're trying to transition to clean energy, but is sort of, it's becoming more and more obsolete with each passing year, whether that's natural gas or whether that's coal?
So I think you raise a good point. Not only is it not as reliable as it was just say a year ago this time. People were traveling when the planes were flying every direction and people were buying tickets and going this place and going that place. I mean, our revenue is down so that even what we just generally collect for people going intrastate or interstate on the turnpike, they are not going anywhere. They're not traveling. So that being said, we can't put all our eggs in one basket. That's why the governor has, put out a few different ways to raise new revenue. One of them being marijuana legalization, and being sold through the current state store system where all wine and spirits are sold currently. I mean, we have to really think outside the box at a few different streams of income for the Commonwealth.
Yeah. We're talking with, if you're just now tuning in, we're talking with Pennsylvania House Minority Leader Joanna McClinton at the top of this Reality Check Wednesday edition. Go to pahouse.com/McClinton, where you can go to her website, particularly if you're a constituent, if you're a resident within the 191st Legislative District of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania that's covering Delaware and Philadelphia counties. She's also minority leader of the House, of the Pennsylvania House, and she's joining us from Harrisburg right now via Skype. 215-634-8065. Toll free, it's 866-361-0900 in case you have questions for the Pennsylvania House minority leader who is joining us here right now. How confident are you of this budget as it's being announced today passing through the Pennsylvania State Legislature, especially given the current political climate?
So I'll tell you what I told my caucus, and don't you all repeat it. This is a framework. Every governor's budget is simply a framework. It's a blueprint, and it's a proposal. It is not legislation. We are not voting on anything today. The budget is due by June 30th. So what that means is, the week after next, the Appropriations Committee and the Pennsylvania House is going to start their hearings where they hear from all the departments with their requests and what they're currently spending and why they need less or why they need more. So we are, hearing the governor's ambitions. Governor Wolf is, his time is running out. State reps, we only get 2-year terms. The governor gets 4 years, but only twice, and he's in his second, term. So that being said, I believe Governor Wolf is thinking about legacy. He's thinking about wanting to, do the things that are strong, that are bold, decriminalizing marijuana, legalizing it. If it doesn't happen, right away, that if he doesn't put it out there, it'll never happen, right? And he's also trying to make sure that whoever comes after him to fill his shoes is in a better financial position than he has been in. Because many people probably remember his first budget that went on for over 9 months because he wanted some bold things back then. So it's not really new. It's almost like a resurgence of things that he has wanted since he first started as our commander-in-chief in the Commonwealth, which is to fairly fund the schools, to give a raise in the minimum wage. I mean, we are long overdue for these things. So I'm glad that he's taking a bold step, because it's a it's a starting point for him to tell all of our colleagues, because of course, even Democrats in the minority, we can't get any of these things passed by ourselves. But if he doesn't put out a bold proposal, they'll continue to do what they've been doing, which is like filling in plugs, like a sinking Titanic. I mean, we've been that ship going down financially.
Yeah. What issues do you feel that you could find common ground on with Republicans on the other side of the aisle?
So I do think that this is the first time any governor has proposed funding indigent public defense. Some of you on the broadcast may know I was a public defender in Philly for almost 10 years. Pennsylvania is the only state that does not support indigent public defense, and that's simply public defenders in counties across the state. And why that may not come off to you as something we should pay is because the truth is, if you have capable, sound, well-trained counsel at the start of any sort of criminal case, regardless of what a jury decides or a judge decides, if that person is able to be on equal footing as people that I used to work with at the Defender, where we had rigorous training and lots of mentors within the establishment of that office, if they're on that great footing, it's the same as having a paid defense attorney with years and years of experience. And that being said, we won't have 38,000 people in the Department of Corrections. I think our DA Krasner has exonerated almost 20 people who were wrongfully convicted. So that's something that I do think we can find common ground on. I was on a Bar Association retreat with all the leaders, the Republican leaders in the Senate and in the House on last Friday. And I was pulling at those strings, as they say, playing a little song, letting them know like this is critical. And I got some good feedback. So I think that is one of the areas where we can find common ground.
So, I mean, indigent defense, what's in it for them, though? I guess that's the big question mark for me when we think about Republicans. I mean, is there something that is it more defense or public defense for people or constituents in their districts? Is that what they're thinking about? Are they getting a complaint about that?
I don't know about constituent complaints, but I do know that they look at the bottom line. So if it means people who are innocent are not going to jail because they just don't have well-capable counsel, that is something that is able to be, because with the number of people that have been exonerated recently and the fact that they're filing lawsuits, that counties are spending millions of dollars for wrongfully convicted folks, that's something that all want to unilaterally end. We don't want to have our counties, whether it's Centre County or whether it's Butler County, on the hook for these types of things. And if we have people that are prepared at the front end, then hopefully we can avoid those awful miscarriages of justice.
The governor also in his budget, he's proposing, going back to that bond, that $4.5 billion proposed bond to pay back over 20 years. That's to take care of pandemic response, pandemic relief. Your thoughts on, because Philadelphia being roiled by controversy, by scandal with this Philly fighting COVID scandal and the overall scandal of the city not doing a very good job of vaccine distribution to the populations, the low-income Black, brown populations in the city that really need it the most because they're hardest hit by COVID. And so what are we doing about that? Your thoughts on vaccine distribution, I mean, whether it's in Philly or throughout the state, to those populations that are most in need. What could the Commonwealth be doing better here?
So right now, there is a hearing happening to see if the National Guard is able to supplement Pennsylvania's efforts with getting the vaccine out. We're having, number one, a supply issue. There are 12 million Pennsylvanians, and we've only received a few 100,000 vaccines. So that is enough to go around to our frontline workers, to our healthcare workers, to our senior citizens who are in long-term care facilities, which have been ravished, sadly, by this disease. So we need support, but we also need the supply. Like, we need the federal government to give us more vaccine. And as it relates to Philly fighting COVID, I mean, that's a whole fiasco. I'm so grateful that no one's health was compromised by such mismanagement with a contract or non-contract, as they were calling it, given to an organization that was ill prepared for this moment in time. So that being said, I'm glad nobody was hurt, but we first of all need the demand. We need the supply.
That we know of.
Yeah, yes, nobody that we know of, and I hope no one was hurt, because it's just clear who all was giving out those vaccines, whether or not they were all healthcare professionals. I feel like there will be a long investigation to make sure there was no criminality committed by anybody, by the young man or by anybody who was working for him or with him.
Yeah. Oh, leader, let's go to, I got a real quick question I want to take from Maurice out of Southwest. Maurice, how are you doing? Good morning.
Good.
You have a question for Minority Leader Joanna McClinton.
Yeah, two quick things. First of all, how dare the governor ask us to pay more? Has he went to the fracking company and asked them for that $1 billion? And number two, this time when they do the CARES Act or something similar to it with the money in, are you going to have somebody in your office able to explain to people how to do it? Because I live in your district, to show how to do the paperwork.
Those are two good questions, Minority Leader, because one, I kind of raised the brow on that too. That's a significant increase in the personal income tax to pay for schools. You were just explaining, I mean, also part of this proposal is to put more taxes, more weight on the natural gas, on the fossil fuel industry in the state. So I know that there are going to be a lot of folks out there. Maurice, it's a valid question. There are going to be a lot of folks out there going to be a little bit hot about having to pay more taxes. And then two, I did have that. Thanks for asking that last question, Maurice. We have $858 million slotted for PA, right, for rental assistance out of the $900 billion pandemic relief that passed in December. So we got more monies coming into the state to take care of people for rental assistance, mortgage relief. Are we going to make sure that that money is used? Are we making sure also that people are able to in a user-friendly way, access that money, Representative?
So yes, thank you for those questions, Maurice. I appreciate you calling in. And if you ever want to call my office, the phone number is 215-748-6712. That's 215-748-6712. They're working remotely, but we will reopen to the public tomorrow, Thursday morning at 8:30. We're at 52 South 60th Street, basically at 60th and Chestnut. So yes, we are very diligent about this $900 billion in relief for homeowners or renters, making sure that the restrictions that were on the program, which unfortunately left that money on the table last year, will not be restrictions in this program. That bill coming out of House Appropriations Committee today, and it has been worked on by our staff, and I have been directly involved to make sure it's much more user-friendly and that it's easier to access. I just don't think PHFA was the right entity to be able to distribute it. So money will be given to the counties to distribute it through local nonprofits and as they see fit. And there will also be probably in the Department of Human Services an application for you to apply easily there. The key for that is getting both renters, homeowners, and the small business owners who are landlords to try to get them the support they need. Some of the things that held us back from spending that money before was landlords having to agree to write off some of the back rent. They will not have to do that because unfortunately some of them maybe can't afford to do it, don't want to do it, whatever the opinion is. That was keeping people from applying. So we want everybody to be able to apply to get this money immediately and to get it right to them so that they don't lose their housing. I mean, to think about all the instability this pandemic has brought, housing is literally like the most basic, secure, stable thing that a human needs. So we want to keep that going. And then as it relates to the taxes, very valid question about who is paying more and are people even able to pay more. So essentially, Governor Wolf's plan that he's proposing this morning is a restructuring of taxes. And in Pennsylvania, 7 out of 10 Pennsylvanians will get a tax cut, meaning you will pay less in taxes than you already pay. And those other 3 are at income levels where they should be able to afford to pay higher taxes because of their income levels. And when I say income levels, It would be several people, but making, and I don't have the exact number in front of me this second, but 7 out of 10 will be getting a break.
Got it. Got it. We've been talking with Pennsylvania House Minority Leader Joanna McClinton, also represents the 191st Legislative District. Go to pahouse.com/McClinton. That's the website. Especially if you're a constituent like Maurice, you need to get more information. You need to get in contact with her office, especially with rental relief mortgage assistance. They're on the horizon, and they're trying to streamline and make that process much more user-friendly. So it's good to hear. You want to go to pahouse.com/McClinton to get more information on how to reach her office. Representative, we got to let you go, but really appreciate your time this morning. Stay safe out there and keep us posted.
Absolutely. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks,
All right, you do the same. Be safe. All right, let's take a break. And once again, thanks for those questions, Maurice. Really appreciate that. They came at the right time. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we have WURD's own Michael Cord going to join us next. You need to bring Michael Cord on. I've always said I need to bring Michael Cord on a little bit more frequently, and always love talking to this brother offline and occasionally working with him as well. So Michael Cord of WURD going to be joining us next, talk about a number of issues. And let's take a break, and we'll be right back.
Attention WURD audience, do you know that you can get help with your PICO energy bill? PICO is here to help you with financial help through various assistance programs, including the PICO CAP program, which provides a monthly credit for eligible low-income customers based on the customer's total household gross income and energy usage. If you are experiencing financial hardship, you may qualify for the PICO CAP program.
And PICO Cares is the customer assistance and referral evaluation service designed to assist special needs, low-income customers who have a temporary personal or financial hardship that prevents the payment of your PICO energy bill. If you have a special needs child or adult in your care, your household may qualify for the CARES program.
Call 1-800-774-7040 today to see if you qualify due to an existing situation or a change in circumstances within your household. Call 1-800-774-7040 today for more information on the PICO CAP or PICO CARES program. PICO, powering our communities.
Listen to Laborers Live.
We created the weekend. We created the 40-hour work week. We just want enough to feed our family, be able to send our children to college, and let our next generation do better than we did.
To people that might have forgot how important unionism is in a country like the United States. People now infringing on our 8-hour work day, trying to work people more than 8 hours without overtime, trying to work people without benefits. In the long run, everybody's getting a fat paycheck except the worker. So this is really a wake-up call for America.
The struggle is continuous. Tune in to Laborers Live every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. Sponsored by LESIT, the Laborers Employers Cooperation Education Trust of the Laborers District Council of Philadelphia and vicinity.
Local 332, Sam Staten Jr. Business Manager. Local 57, Esteban Vera Business Manager. Local 135, Dan Woodall Jr. Business Manager. Local 413, James Harper Jr. Business Manager. The Laborers District Council, Ryan Boyer Business Manager, and Tony Staten, Executive Director of LESIT.
As a business owner, hiring and developing people from the community that your company serves is one of the best ways to show commitment to that community. Let WURD Radio help with Livelihood, our new initiative that connects Philadelphians with companies like yours. We'll feature your business, open employment opportunities, and resources to connect your company with talent and ensure that you reach your target demographic. To learn more about how Livelihood can help you build your team, visit wordworks.com. That's WURDworks.com. Livelihood is supported by the Nightland Fest's Local News Transformation Fund, Borealis Philanthropies Racial Equity and Journalism Fund, and the Solutions Journalism Network. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, Michael Cord is host of Radio Courtroom. That is live here on WURD on Sundays, 11 a.m. Also writes frequently for the Philadelphia Tribune, a number of other publications. Does a lot of work, a lot of great work, essential work behind the scenes, sometimes in the scenes in Philadelphia and beyond. It's always a pleasure to talk with them when I can catch up with them, when we both catch up with one another. So finally, I've always said, I need to just every now and then we need to be more intentional about it and bring Michael on more regularly, especially when schedules permit. He's joining us now here live on Reality Check via Skype. You can see him on WURD TV. We're going to leave the phone lines open, by the way, 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900, in case you have questions or you want to join in on the conversation. Michael, how are you doing? Good morning.
I'm doing very well. Good morning to you, and thank you for having me on the show. Let me just say this, Charles. I love what every host does at WRD. I love what all the black hosts do on other radio stations. But, man, you dive deeper on topics than anybody else. And I got to give you a shout out for that, man. You do the work, and I respect it.
Well, I appreciate that, brother. I really do. I respect the work you do. That's why I'm always I'm humbled by that statement. I really am, especially coming from you, Michael. That means a lot. That means a whole lot to me. Thanks for joining us, and hopefully we make this a lot more frequent.
Yes.
And you know what prompted me too? What triggered me? There were questions from a few listeners who were wondering about Juneteenth, about the status of Juneteenth in Philly. I wondered about that too. There were some folks, critics, detractors in the city, talking about getting rid of or not having Juneteenth as a legal holiday in Philadelphia. What's the status of that? I just want to know.
Great question. I'll give you an even greater answer. But before I do that, I got to give a big shout out to Coach John Chaney, who just became an ancestor. And since he became an ancestor on January 29, I make it my business to spend about 30 seconds when I'm talking to anybody in the media, because we hear so much about what he did at some unnamed school on North Broad Street. But that unnamed school on North Broad Street would have never gotten that jewel that was and is Coach John Chaney had it not been for his 1978 Division II championship out of Cheney. Had it not been for him being named the NCAA Division II Coach of the Year. If it had not been for the decade he spent at Cheney winning 80% of his games. Who does that? 80% of his games, Hall of Fame coach in 2001, and I'm wearing my red and white today, crimson and cream, in honor of my frat brother, Coach John Chaney. So I just want to give him a big shout out. The media keeps talking about that school on North Broad Street. Okay, that's fine, but let's talk about the foundation. 1978 Division II championship at Cheney State College, now Cheney University. Thank you for allowing me to go off script for 30 seconds.
No, that wasn't off script at all. That was more than appropriate. And John Chaney had me thinking, a lot of folks that were growing up in North Philly, that Temple University was an HBCU.
Great point.
I was under the assumption for years, like I was a kid, I was like, oh, that's that black college, Temple, you know, like, and maybe I'll go to it one day. Right?
It's funny you said it, because he did what he did at Cheney, obviously in HBCU, but many people don't know that he graduated from the HBCU, Bethune-Cookman. So that school on North Broad Street kind of tried to slide in the back door of the HBCU. You know, we're evaluating their credentials right now. We'll get back to you.
That's right. But no, I appreciate that, and I'm sure Ancestor Chaney appreciates that shout out as well. We're talking with Michael Cord. He's also on Twitter, if you can find him, Michael at Michael Cord, if I'm not mistaken.
That's it.
On Twitter. He's highly engaged there. You'll see every now and then, you know, we'll retweet and like, you know, what the other is saying. So at Michael Cord on Twitter. So, so Juneteenth, going back to Juneteenth, what's going on with that?
It's a great question, Charles. Thanks for raising. Bottom line is, it's all good. Okay. Initially, there were rumors that the mayor was not going to issue the executive order he did last year to make it an official city holiday. And all that means is that the city workers get paid. It got a little more complicated because the issue dealt with, and Brother Malcolm, I got his post next to me, always talks about making it plain, so I'm going to make it plain. It wasn't just a matter of the mayor himself unilaterally deciding it. He had to deal with the 4 unions because of the city employees. So there was ongoing negotiations, some mistakes, some misinformation got out, some rumors got out. Long story short, the mayor has officially gone on record, and I'll attack him when he needs to be attacked, but he did the right thing in 2020. He's going to do the right thing in 2021, and he said that as long as he's mayor, Juneteenth will be an official city holiday. And it gets even better because we're hearing that in addition to that, with this executive order, hasn't been confirmed, but I got it from reliable sources, that in addition to Juneteenth being an official city holiday, that Columbus Day will be renamed Indigenous Peoples Day. So we're making a lot of progress. And the other thing I want to try to make sure we do is, because Juneteenth is obviously on June 19th. That's a Saturday this year. I want to do what the school district did, making June 18, that Friday, the holiday. So we're working on that, all that. But thanks for raising the question. Bottom line, it's all good. In fact, with this Indigenous Day component, it's actually better than we expected.
No, I like that. So Juneteenth, officially a holiday, because you have other cities like it really was not a real big issue, not a whole lot of controversy in cities like Washington, D.C., for example. So where they have like Emancipation Day, and it's not, it was just like, we're doing this.
Yes, that's it.
So then suddenly there's all this controversy in Philly, and folks, what's the big problem here? And I think a lot of people got worried about that. So thanks for that update. And
the other
very
thing is
pleased to hear. Oh,
very quick. The other thing is this. Frederick Douglass said, "Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did. It never will." And even though some misinformation kind of leaked out of City Hall, there were some considerations not to make it an official city holiday. And I got to give black folks credit. They rose up. Some of them kind of sort of overreacted, but I'm glad they did, because by the yelling and screaming, they got the ear of the city officials. So now everything's on track. But thanks for raising the issue.
That's right. So that definitely works out many times in Philly. That raising that voice.
Yes.
Sometimes that works in Philadelphia. So I want to ask about other issues that are going on in the city. I want to get your thoughts on it, particularly from a legal perspective, Michael. COVID vaccine disparities in the city. It's a majority black city, yet far fewer black people in the city are getting vaccinated the way they should. Then we have this Philly Fighting COVID scandal. It's a scandal.
Yes.
Like it's nothing less. And, I feel like, there's a moment here where residents could potentially seek legal recourse. Could they, for, the city now just like failing on its obligations to get residents vaccinated, but particularly the residents that are most impacted, that are disproportionately impacted by COVID-19?
Excellent question. It comes down to this. You can sue anybody for anything. The question is, can you win? So it comes down to this. First of all, the plaintiff, the person suing, has to have standing, which means that person has to show that I was injured in a certain way. And then it's a couple things. Once you can show that I was injured, which means you have standing, then you go to the issue of liability, which means who caused my injury. And then finally go to the issue of damages. So it all comes down to this. The reason why I said at the outset in response to your question, you can sue anybody for anything. The question is, can you win? So anybody who has standing, who says that, hey, I was a person who didn't get the vaccine and I should have. Now we get to the question of liability. Who caused you not to get that vaccine? Okay, this defendant here. But the issue here, the most important issue here would be the third component, which is damages. Damages pertain to what did you suffer? If I walk down the street and my neighbor pushes me and I stumble on the curb, well, yeah, I'm the plaintiff. I got standing. My neighbor pushed me. I stumbled and he was liable. But what's the damages? Did I break my arm? No. Did I hit my head? No. So it's going to come down to all three components. One, who's got standing. Two, who's liable for that injury. But three, most important, what's the damages? And right now, based on what I'm seeing and hearing, I don't see enough in damages to warrant a lawsuit, even a class action. However, a lot of times, and lawyers don't say this out loud, but I'll say the secret part out loud on your radio show. Sometimes you don't sue in a court of law, you sue in the court of public opinion.
Right.
Which means you file the lawsuit knowing it's pretty much a dead end. And as long as you feel comfortable that the defendant is not going to file a counterclaim, for you to pay his or her attorney's fees, you might just want to file it to make the noise. So as a legal matter, and then even beyond that, once you get into a courtroom, it's not criminal, so it's not beyond a reasonable doubt. It's civil, which means a preponderance. So even if you get those three things I mentioned, the standing, the liability, the damages, do you have enough evidence to persuade a jury by a preponderance? Right now, it doesn't seem like it, but potentially that could happen. Let's say that somebody's grandmother passed away, and the grandmother was scheduled to get the shot on that day, was in line, this nonsense took place, the person didn't get it, and then the person passed away. That might be, and you can show a direct connection between, hey, the person didn't get this vaccine, and direct cause of that was the death. So you got to show proximity and all that. So to answer your question, yes, some people might have a legal issue here, but I'd argue right now most don't.
Because I'm thinking, like, hypothetically, class action lawsuit in the city of Philadelphia or in other cities as well, because we're having these vaccine distribution issues, the black populations in other places. And then you have folks who are jumping in front of the line. While the folks who are suffering the most from COVID-19 can't get vaccine on time. So it's like, so once we collect that data and we show, hey, you know, this huge gap in vaccine delivery has extended the lifespan or the length of this pandemic or the length of pandemic or COVID impact on my community, class action suit. You know, and I just think about, I mean, I know that, you know, because of the political climate that we're in, you know, and like in places like Washington, D.C., where government is, you know, Democrats are running government, but it's very split. Things are toxic. One thing we used to do a lot of, and you know this, Michael, this is one of the reasons you got into the law. One thing our community used to do a lot of is sue people. I mean, sue people a lot. I mean, that's why we got a lot of the things we have now. And I'm just wondering if, you know, there's a need to revisit that or to return to that legacy of weaponizing the law
Charles,
for our benefit.
You hit it on the head. You first used the word data. That's most important. Research has to be done so we can get the information / ammunition we need. And then when you're suing, you got to ask yourself, what are you suing for? If you're suing for $1 million, it could be a problem. But let's say you're just suing for what we lawyers call an injunction. An injunction is when you get a judge to order a defendant to do something or to stop doing something. So you got to ask yourself, what type of award or settlement or judgment do you want? Right now, if there seem to be enough people who were interested in pursuing it, I recommend they contact you or me. If we can get together a class, even if we don't think there's merit in a court of law lawsuit, there might be some merit in a court of public opinion lawsuit. So my thing is, let's not dismiss this thing. And you're certainly not, because you're raising it. I just don't want people to think that because of what I'm saying in terms of being an uphill battle, that means don't pursue it. I suggest that we pursue it. And you already gave my social media handle on Twitter, on Instagram. If folks are interested, got family members, friends, please contact me, and I can get a group of pro bono attorneys. We can put something together and move this thing forward. I think that's an excellent idea. And Charles, because you came up with it, I'll give you credit for it.
All right, let's no, seriously, let's. I would love to look into that. Let me take a real quick call, Michael, from Mamie, Ms. Mamie. Ms. Mamie's my girl. She really touched me. Her and her son yesterday here on Reality Check. I'm still glowing from that. Ms. Mamie out of University City. How are you doing? Good morning.
I'm good. Good morning to Counselor Cord and to Brother Charles. You
good
are
morning to you.
Such geniuses. I was thinking about that for the longest, and I have gotten a beautiful lesson. And if you're going to start something, I can't get out and ambulate like I used to, but at least I can make phone calls. I can be, like you said, your girl. Okay, thank you so much. Have a blessed day. And you all, and Troy, he is my favorite young man.
Yes.
He is so special. And listen, stay safe out there.
All right, you do the same, please, Ms. Mamie. I appreciate you. I'm sure Troy appreciates that, and I know Counselor Michael does as well. But yeah, no, I would think that someone like Ms. Mamie would be thinking about it. I think there are a lot of people that are thinking about that out there. Michael, I got you for a couple more minutes. You know, let's go national right now. This conversation on how insurrectionists should be prosecuted. They're not really being prosecuted. There's this double standard that is emerging. You know, just even when you have like federal prosecutors debating over, oh, should we jail them or not? You know, or like you see this girl who stole a laptop from the House Speaker's office, and you know she's getting bail. Like she's not even in a jail, and you know she still tries to get online, still trying to sell the laptop to Russian intelligence. How do we move forward on that when we're seeing this double standard being applied in the law like that? When we know the law, it's working, but only for a certain class or for a certain group of people.
You know, that's a great question. It comes down to this. We got to just continue to expose it. We got to yell. We got to scream. We got to protest. But most important, we got to vote. We got to get the right judges in. We got to get the right prosecutors in. We got to get the right city council, state legislature, Congress. So we got to raise some hell. That's the bottom line. And I'm so glad, Charles, you asked about the charges, because I'm seeing this double standard. For example, I have clients who are charged often with lesser crimes, and if they get the privilege of getting out of jail on bail, they can't even leave the city. You got these insurrectionists. One woman just got permission from a federal judge to leave the country. Who does that? But having said that, it's a joke what you're seeing now from the prosecutors, and I'm hoping that President Biden lights a fire under them, because the charges they're filing for the most part are minor charges, disorderly conduct, and that kind of thing. I'm talking about dropping the hammer. The first charge for everybody, and this is important, it's called seditious conspiracy. And I encourage people to Google seditious conspiracy. If they want to know exactly where it is, go to volume 18, United States Code 2384. That's volume 18, United States Code 2384. This is what seditious conspiracy is and means. It says that if you agree with at least one other person to use force to hinder or prevent or delay the execution of federal law, that's seditious conspiracy. As simple as that. So if Charles and I agree that we're going to go to the Capitol because we know they're supposed to certify the Electoral College vote, but you and I go there and use force to prevent it, to hinder it, or to delay it, then that's a violation of the seditious conspiracy law, and the maximum sentence is 20 years.
Wow.
You start right there.
It's already, laws are already on the book.
Already on the books. And speaking of already on the book, you got the federal law, assault on a federal officer. You got violent entry into a federal building. You got destruction of government property. You got, even beyond that, you got D.C. D.C. district laws that apply. So based on the concept of conspiracy, and I'll make this very quick, conspiracy for all those crimes I mentioned, the assault, the murder, the manslaughter, destruction of property, all that, it's all connected to the law of conspiracy. Conspiracy is three things: intent, agreement, overt act. Conspiracy, intent. Charles says, I want to rob a bank. Agreement. Mike says, I'll drive you. Overt act, one of us walks into the bank. That's it. Intent, agreement, overt act. Everybody who entered that building, everybody who crossed the barricades should be charged with and convicted of seditious conspiracy and face a minimum of 20 years.
That's what I always say about politics and policy making. Exhaust all options.
Yes.
Exhaust all options. Like, people get, really vexed and frustrated because they're like, well, this system is not working for me. Well, did you do X, Y, and Z?
Yes. Yes.
You haven't exhausted all the options yet. You're barely touching the surface. And so we find that with the law. Michael, I'm just going to make this announcement here. You and I talked about that. We want to try to make this like a monthly exercise at the very least.
Yes.
Having you on, because I think that these are very profound conversations, like the one we just had, and that can lead to something. Because that's what you and I both, we agree on this. We're always on the same page. That's why we connect all the time.
Yes. Yes.
We don't like talking if it's not going to lead to something, if it doesn't have some kind of impact.
Amen.
And so Michael Cord is host of Radio Courtroom here on WURD. That's Sundays at 11 a.m. Listen to that, so you can get more of this conversation. Also at Michael Cord on Twitter, and read some of his wonderful columns in the Philadelphia Tribune as well at a newsstand near you. Michael, always a pleasure. It's an honor to have you on. So we'll be talking with you again.
I thank you for those kind words throughout the interview, and at the end, I might make you my hype man. Thank you very much, Charles. I love it.
He's right here. All right, brother. Take care.
Hey, keep up the great work.
Peace. You do the same. All right, be safe. Okay, let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll just continue to keep those phone lines open at 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900, as we transition into the 11 o'clock hour here on Reality Check. In the 11 o'clock hour, we're supposed to be talking with Ari Drennan, Associate Director for Communications in the Energy and Environment team at the Center for American Progress. We want to talk about how fast the Biden administration is moving on climate crisis. So we'll have an onWURD session that's coming up in the 11 o'clock hour. But let's take a break, and we'll come back with open phone lines next.
What's up, everyone? I know you know the word, no, not the station, but this word, J-O-B, that is. And our friends at Amoroso's Baking Company are hiring right now. Amoroso's has been baking the delicious bread in our community for over 100 years, and they want you to join their team today. The old and the young love Amoroso's, and they are hiring right now. Check it out. They offer fair pay and provide health, dental, and prescription plans after 90 days employment. Call 856-754-0355 or visit amorososbaking.com for details.
WURD Radio celebrates Black History Month with Black Artist Story 365. Brought to you by Keystone First.
Welcome to Black Artist Story 365. My name is Envy McKee. Get into this episode where we explore the art and artistry of revolutionary poet Amiri Baraka. Part 1. Everett Leroy Jones was born in Newark, New Jersey. His father, Colt Leverett Jones, worked as a postal worker and lift operator. His mother, Anna Louise Russ, was a social worker. Jazz was something Baraka got interested in as a kid. He wanted to be just like Miles Davis. The influence of jazz can be seen throughout his work later in life. For college, he won a scholarship to Rutgers University in New Brunswick in 1951, but transferred in 1952 to Howard University. Before Amiri Baraka was Amiri Baraka, he was Leroy Jones. And at the time, Leroy moved to Manhattan, where in addition to attending Columbia University and the New School, he became a prominent artist in the Greenwich Village scene. In 1961, Leroy published his first major collection of poetry, preface to a 20-volume suicide note. His 1964 Obie Award-winning play, The Dutchman, which addressed racial tensions and American blacks' repressed hostility towards whites, gained him fame and acclaim. So that's it for this episode of Black Artist Story 365. My name is Envy McKee. To hear more, tune in to The Envy McKee Show, Friday nights, 7 to 10 p.m., right here on WURD.
Black Artist Story 365 is brought to you by Keystone First, keeping you informed. As a community service, WURD Radio and the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium wants to keep you informed about where you can get no-cost, barrier-free COVID-19 testing this week. Monday, February 1st, at 2 locations, SEPTA of 69th Street, 6901 Market Street in Upper Darby from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. and then at noon at Salem Baptist Church, 2741 Woodland Road in Abington. And Tuesday, February 2nd, 12 noon till 8 p.m. at Christian Stronghold Baptist Church, 4701 Lancaster Avenue in Philadelphia. Stay informed and stay well with WURD Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDRadio.com.
All right, welcome back here on Reality Check. We are here in the midweek edition on WURD, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDRadio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. The only place where you can hear that Black Artist Story series. That's a wonderful series, by the way. Every time, I don't know if Envy McKee is listening right now, but just want to give a shout out to Envy for just a wonderful, fantastic series, and love how her voice has a cadence to it, and she just delivers it so well. And I'm learning something new about all these iconic Black artists that I knew these iconic Black artists, but there's some things that I did not know about them when I'm just sort of during break listening and paying attention to those radio spots to the Black Artist Story series that Envy McKee put together. So just a wonderful job there. So if she's listening, or if someone else happens to be listening right now who can get in touch with Envy, just tell her I said, hey, this one fantastic job. Really appreciate that. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Also, to continue to get the kind of content, the kind of intelligence, the kind of conversation with impact that you get daily on an outlet, on an institution, or with an institution like WURD, sign up for that forward membership. That forward membership is a big part of what keeps WURD alive, which keeps it continuing and keeps it as strong, keeps it as essential as it is to Philadelphia's Black community, and also the Black communities elsewhere. There are a lot more people throughout the nation who are learning about WURD. WURD's getting out. WURD is really, truly getting out. I'm not just saying that in any sort of facetious pun way. It really is. Folks around the country are hearing about WURD. They don't have a WURD. They really want a WURD, so they're starting to listen to the original WURD, right? The OG of Black radio, of Black talk radio, real Black talk radio with impact, and that's WURD. So a lot of folks are really relying on us to deliver the kind of conversation and information that is so essential for the community. You can do that through your forward membership. You can sign up for forward membership today at wordradio.com/forward. And you don't just get a membership. You don't just get an opportunity to support a very crucial and essential media institution like WURD, but also you get some benefits out of it. You get some word swag, you get invitations to special events, discounts, VIP invitations. We're still doing special events, mostly in a virtual environment, so we keep the Word family and the Word universe going. So it really is its own little universe, its own little community. WURD it is. So, and it's very special and it's very unique. It's very exceptional, and people know that. People know that in Philly and throughout the world. So continue, renew your Forward membership, or go ahead and sign up for your own Forward membership. Whether you're in Philly or whether you're somewhere else, encourage your family and friends to sign up for a Forward membership. And one thing about a Forward membership, once you sign up, once you're supporting this station, once you're supporting this institution, you know that money is going into a good cause. You know that money is going into a movement. You know that this is a movement, WURD, and you know that money is being put to good use because of the kind of content and conversation like what I was just having right now with Michael Cord just a few moments ago. Now we have some ideas. My head is churning because I'm like, okay, yeah, let's do this. Let's maybe put into action some of the things we talked about. That happens regularly on WURD, whether that's on Reality Check or many of the other programs that are here throughout the day on WURD. Let me go to Jacob out of Albany, who's calling in for a Reality Check. Jacob?
Hey, peace be unto you, Brother Ellison. How you doing?
Peace.
Yes.
What's happening?
Man, that was an excellent interview with Esquire. That's what I'm talking about. We've been for a long time, like you said, we never take things to the last common denominator to get the job done, right? With the laws and everything that we have the right to because we didn't know about them. You remember when 45 said that he did more for black people, right, than any president, and he excluded Abraham Lincoln, right? When it comes to, if you really think about it, he did more to wake us up to what we needed, with his ugly, racist ways, right? He didn't only wake up black people, he woke white folk up, right? And now they're having to deal with the ugliness that they see in that girl Green, right? That these are just ugly, inhuman people. And so in a way, they say a broken clock is right twice a day. In a way, 45 might have been right. And I'm, in a way, all right, I'm cool with that because, again, never before in my lifetime have I seen us move with such urgency to rectify some of these ugly things, these injustices, right? It's all good. In other words, I'm optimistic, man, because we're waking up, and I believe we're going to stay woke. What have you to say about this? I mean, am I wrong in thinking these things, or can you help a brother out if I'm going to think up?
No, I don't think so. I don't suspect so, and I think you're definitely onto something there too, Jacob. I think that it's something that we have to. We do have to, and you know what? In fact, I'm going to ask that question, or I'm going to ask something kind of related to that, like what Trump had said years ago, and in relation to the black community. There's an interview that I have later on with Malcolm Burnley, who wrote something for the Philadelphia Citizen about the low voter turnout in places of the city. In Philadelphia, we had high turnout historically compared to other recent election cycles, 66% turnout, but very, very low in places like Ward 7 in North Philly and Hunting Park. But one of the things, but there was also an uptick of somewhat support in those communities, or at least some inroads that Trump had made because of people getting stimulus checks. So there's always this really complicated conversation that we're going to have to sort out, particularly as we're coming up on the 2022-2024 election cycles, about the relationship that our community has with elected officials, with these political processes, with these policy-making systems. It's a very complex and it's a very tortured relationship right now. And a lot of it has to do with trust or the lack thereof. You still there, Jacob? You want any parting thoughts?
Well, I just want to say this, as Reverend Joe say, let's keep on doing what we do to get what we need. And I don't think it's no stopping us, man. I don't see anything that can stop us.
I don't either. And you just you keep that fight going. So I sometimes think that there's an assumption that that okay, well, we did step one, and so I did what I was supposed to do. I did what you asked me to do, so that job is done. No, I mean, it's an ongoing, it's a lifetime of struggle because, you know, even if you do make some inroads or you do make, you are able to succeed at one point or at one period, you have to sustain that. You also have to maintain that victory. You have to keep it there. So, you know, it's an ongoing, like, lifetime job. It's a lifetime struggle. It's a lifetime journey and mission. So we just have to stay with it. We have to stay on it. Jacob, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for calling in. I appreciate you. Let me, I actually have to go to break so we can head into the 11 o'clock hour, heading into an EcoWord segment. Ari Drennan is coming up next. She's with the Center for American Progress. So occasionally, you know, we got another Cap Corner coming up, but also an EcoWord segment. We're going to talk about how fast we think Joe Biden is moving on climate crisis, because we do need to move fast. And why is that important? You know, because some people are asking, like, what does the climate have to do with me? Well, it has a lot to do with you. So I still hear that question. I still hear people asking me that, like, why are we talking about climate? Why is it, we got this pandemic going on? I don't have any money in my pocket. I was like, none of that's going to matter if you can't breathe. We're like literally choking for air in the middle of the street. So, you know, so climate crisis is an existential threat. And so it's something that we have to talk about. We talk about it here regularly. We worry about it. I worry about the state of things and the state of the planet here on WURD, so here on Reality Check. So we're going to have that conversation next in the 11 o'clock hour here on Reality Check. Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Clark Roofing salutes Black History Month with over 30 years of quality roofing experience, providing exceptional customer service, honesty, and professionalism. For service, call 215-365-ROOF. That's 215-365-7663.
What would you call a joy that is as solemn as it is sweet and knows no bounds? A joy that's beautifully rooted in soul and resilience. This is Black Joy, a joy that reflects pride and honor despite every challenge. AARP believes the power of Black joy is limitless, and through Black History Month and beyond, we celebrate this joy supreme. Join us in celebrating Black History Month at aarp.org/blackcommunity.
WURD Radio is independent Black media, and we're able to stay independent because of our forward movement and members like you.
Treat yourself to the treat of buying a WURD membership. It's less than a quarter a day. That's less than a bag of chips. And we really, truly need to keep this platform going so that we can stay connected as we reimagine our community in 2021.
Start or renew your forward membership today at wordradio.com/forward or call 215-425-7875. WURD Radio. Independent Black media. Celebrating Black history all day, every day. Maddie Humphreys.
You can't proclaim that people have inalienable rights from a common creator and say you own some of those people.
This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Philadelphia, independent Black media. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDRadio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check, 96.1 FM, 900 AM in Philly proper, in the greater Philly, Delaware Valley area. But in the nation beyond, we are on our live stream at wordradio.com. You can hear us anywhere, and many of you do, beyond Philly on wordradio.com and via WURD TV. We're at youtube.com/onWURD, facebook.com/forward as well. So feel free to continue to listen and watch us there. Joining us now is Ari Drennan, who is with the Center for American Progress. Center for American Progress we have a partnership with. We provide you with frequent Cap Corners here on this program, giving us great insights and delivering great analysts who can give us expert analysis and perspective on a number of issues. She's the Associate Director for Communications at the Center for American Progress's Energy and Environment team. Go to americanprogress.org for more information. Ari, how are you doing? Good morning.
I'm great. How are you?
All right, excellent. So we're looking at the Biden administration and how it is acting on climate crisis. It's no longer climate change, it's just climate crisis. It's in really a crisis state. So what specifically are we thinking about that right now? Is the Biden administration, you think, moving fast enough on climate crisis? How fast is it moving? Is it ambitious enough right now?
I mean, unfortunately, we're not moving fast enough, but the good news is that the Biden administration is moving faster than any administration has ever moved to take on this crisis. We've seen already in less than 2 weeks in the administration significant, ambitious actions and a real recognition that this is a problem that they need to tackle from day one of their administration.
You know, that's an interesting statement that you made where, hey, you know what, overall, as a planet, as a human community, we're not moving fast enough. But definitely the Biden administration is moving faster than previous administrations. Are you able to sort of compare, contrast with, well, definitely, when you look at the previous administration, you could, that they weren't doing anything with respect to climate crisis. But let's just, you know, if you can, sort of summarize that history, comparing and contrasting the Biden administration up against previous administrations and what they've been doing. I mean, we can look at how the current president, when he was senator, I believe the history there is that, I mean, he was the first to help pass the first real significant climate change law or climate change legislation when he was in the Senate at one point. So he's been working on this for a number of years.
Yeah, he has. If you want to compare with previous presidents, obviously the urgency of this problem has increased dramatically over time. But so President Obama first rolled out a very ambitious climate action plan early into his second term. So, you know, that for better, for worse was not a huge, well, I should take that back. So President Obama, obviously early in his term, had been very focused on cap and trade legislation. And unfortunately, that was unable to pass the Senate. So in his second term, he turned more towards what he could get done with executive action and what the sort of limits of the federal government's ability to tackle this problem were. President Biden's coming into his first term with the awareness of what happened with that history. He knows that he needs to be pushing on all the different levers all the time. Unfortunately, it's not just enough to let Congress take care of it. Congress has really kind of advocated its leadership on this issue for many, many years. So it's great to see that President Biden recognizes the urgency of this, recognizes that we lost a lot of ground during the Trump administration. And on his very first day, he was signing executive orders that were rolling back some of the more harmful decisions that that administration made.
You know what I find significant is that, and I want to get your thoughts on this too, Ari, is that there has been a shift in the conversation, in the overall national conversation on how fast and furious and urgent we need to move on this crisis. Like, for example, you were talking about, like, in the early days of the second term of President Obama, there was there was this push to get cap and trade, what they call cap and trade legislation push, which I always thought was like nibbling at the edges of the problem. Like, cap and trade, like, really, that's all y'all coming up with? And everyone could see what was happening. You could, like, what is that even? Like, what is cap and trade, right? That a lot of people would ask that. But now it's people talking more boldly about what to do about climate change, right? Are we seeing that shift? Are you feeling that shift, Ari?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the idea behind cap and trade was that it was based on actually a really successful program under the Reagan administration that was aimed at phasing lead out of automobiles. So I think a lot of the experts early on in the Obama administration took a look at that. They saw, hey, here's a program that worked. Here's something that Republicans had supported in the past. So of course, if we choose this route, Republicans will, see the light and be supportive, right? And, I think we've found out since that it doesn't really work that way. And co-opting Republican ideas and trying to put them to work for our policy solutions just isn't going to work because, like you said, it's kind of nibbling around the edges. it doesn't get the buy-in from the other side that we need. So I think there's more of a recognition now that we need to be moving forward with all the tools in the toolbox, with huge investments, with different kinds of rulemaking and protections for our air and our water and our public lands.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And so, it may be hard to get that kind of constant buy-in or, looking for common ground on these environmental climate crisis. Also, there's pollution, there's the environmental justice component. We'll come up on that shortly. It may be difficult, trying to get Republican elected officials or conservative elected officials on board with this, but, you're looking at their constituents, their voters, and they're reeling from, let's talk about that, where are we seeing that shift happening where more and more people who describe themselves as conservative or as Republican voters who at one point or another thought, oh, this climate change thing, this is a hoax. Well, now with like wildfires going through, rural and suburban or red district communities, drought, also, they're feeling like a lot of the impacts of things that are happening to our planet, to our climate. And so now they're wanting to get something done, and that's putting pressure on, and these people, they hunt and they fish, right? So they want to be able to go to their park and have an abundance of fish. And, they don't want the fish glowing when it comes out of the water. They don't want the fish, suddenly they go to a river and they suddenly see thousands of dead fish belly up. They don't want to see those things. And they want to be able to have, they want to have clean air when they're going out hunting. So it's, maybe I guess that's the way to sort of, bridge that divide between folks who are environmentally aware and conscious, like myself, yourself, and those who consider themselves as conservationists. But are we seeing more of that?
Yeah, I think that the Republican leadership in Congress is really far behind their base on this, especially the younger components of their base. If you look at the polls for millennials, for Generation Z, the idea that you would doubt the science of climate change is just laughable, right? So, I think there's going to be more pressure for Republican officials to acknowledge that science, even though it hasn't really happened yet in Congress, unfortunately. But that's a dynamic that's going to continue. Younger people know that this is happening, and increasingly people all over the country, like you mentioned, know that this is happening. If you look at an earlier era of when environmental action was able to be really successful, what you saw was we were having disasters that were obvious to everybody, right? Like rivers catching on fire in cities, smog that people could see and were really, really struggling with in a visible way. And that spurred on a lot of action. And I think, unfortunately, we're getting to that point with the climate crisis as well, where people are recognizing stronger hurricanes and longer heat waves and, fire seasons that are just getting longer and longer every year. Unfortunately, that means that we need to act really, really quickly. But I think it's good that there's more of a recognition that we do need to act and that we do have a problem.
Yeah, no, I definitely think so as well. We're talking to Ari Drennan, who is Communications Director for the Energy and Environment Team, Associate Communications Director for the Energy and Environment Team at the Center for American Progress. Go to americanprogress.org for more information and also just for great research, more insights there. With this pandemic relief bill, because it appears that the pandemic relief, the $1.9 trillion that Joe Biden wants, he's going to get this passed. He just entertained Republican senators for a few minutes in the White House. Okay, yeah, great, $600 billion. That's fine. Okay, well, we'll think about it. I'll get back to you on that. And then just like the next day, the Senate pushes the procedure for budget reconciliation. So it looks like that $1.9 trillion is getting passed. Anything that we're seeing in this pandemic relief bill, Ari, that is specifically geared towards climate crisis? Anything that we need to make note of that focuses on climate crisis and also other environmental justice issues?
So I think this pandemic relief bill specifically is just really targeted on helping people with the pandemic. Unfortunately, Democrats have taken power in a situation where President Trump, Mitch McConnell, really did not do much of anything to help. And so this is an emergency. This is the first emergency And, they just need to help put out the fire and get some money to folks who are really hurting and help put the funding in place that we need to get the vaccine out. I think that's really got to be the first step. It's a shame that there are all of these crises that we have to deal with, but this bill is very specifically targeted on helping out Americans who are struggling with the pandemic. There will be another opportunity very soon this year when Democrats can use budget reconciliation to try to pass another bill. And I would look at that bill as a vehicle that could be used to target the climate crisis and to move forward some of the environmental justice priorities that President Biden's been talking about.
I wonder about this too, because I'm hearing this question from media quite a bit and from Republicans or for folks who are on the other side of the aisle. And they're wondering if focus on the climate crisis takes us away or distracts us from addressing the pandemic. How do we talk about that? How do we address, because I notice that question keeps coming up. Like I'm watching White House press briefings and I notice reporters I personally feel like, it's not a great question to ask at this time, because I think, you have two existential threats. Of course, everyone knows the pandemic is a major threat and we're going to address it. But so is climate crisis as well. Climate crisis, in fact, wipes everything else out, including the pandemic. It just wipes us all out if we don't get this right, we don't get this correct in time. So what's the counter conversation or counter to that?
Yeah, unfortunately, the pandemic shows that we really don't have a choice in listening to scientists while we're doing policymaking. We don't have a choice to stall on this anymore. We had a real failure of leadership in Washington on this issue. That means that we need to address it immediately. And the argument that we have to choose one or the other is really a false choice, because every moment that we delay on the climate crisis, we're running up against the clock. At the current rate that the United States is burning carbon, is putting carbon pollution into the atmosphere, we will pass the limits that we set forth in the Paris Climate Agreement in just 7 years. We really, really do not have time to put this off any longer, because we've been putting this off for 30 years.
Yeah, that's so true. I wonder too, going back to that urgency question. Okay, so we're talking about Republican elected officials. We're talking about their constituents, their voters, conservative voters. But let's just talk about the overall public, right? Because it's like, how do we get, especially the public that's preoccupied with pandemic, how do we make them understand the urgency of climate change or climate crisis? Also, how do we force people to make that connection between the pandemic and climate crisis? Because they are interconnected in really big ways.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we've seen a lot of really kind of horrifying data come out about how, people who are living in communities with a lot of air pollution are more vulnerable to the pandemic. And I think that really increases the urgency with which we have to speed this up. And it should force us to reckon with the fact that a lot of the kind of normal business model of our economy is predicated on just damaging people's bodies in a way that makes them more vulnerable to things like this. And I really hope that that's something that we can take a long, very serious look at, like now after the pandemic, whenever we look at it. But we need to address that immediately, because, I think it's been truly horrifying the impact that this pandemic has had, especially in Black and Brown communities, where people have lived with this legacy of pollution in a way that a lot of affluent white communities have historically been insulated from.
Yeah. Another question I have too about that public discourse on climate crisis and about really getting through to or connecting to the public on this. I was reading something last night about how, it was a study that had recently come out. It was in Nature. I think it was in Nature magazine, if I'm not mistaken. And it was about how, like, planting so many numbers of trees throughout the globe in 16 different regions during a period of time could really, like, significantly cut down on emissions. Like, there should be this big global tree planting movement to help tackle climate crisis, to help mitigate it in a big way. I think there was something like a 10 or 15% cut in emissions. That's one thing I was able to draw from that. But the study, I have to admit, you know, and I guess I'm a fairly smart guy, it was just so hard to read. I'm like, there was a lot there that I was excited about, but I just couldn't understand. And I wonder about that too, Ari, about while we're having this conversation, we're relying so heavily on our scientists to explain to us, well, hey, what's going on and how do we fix this? And it's just like stuff you got to translate. I think that's a big problem. Like with the science community has really got to figure out a way to translate really complex data and complex conversations so the public can understand, okay, this is what's going on. This is what we need to do about it. This is why this thing we don't like, as you were saying, the clock is ticking against us.
Yeah, I think it's fortunate that there are so many great climate journalists out there who are able to take those complex reports and make sure that they get to the general public. You know, journalists like Emily Atkin at Heated, David Roberts.
Yeah, she's
great.
great.
She's great. David Roberts, who just started his own newsletter as well. Alexander Kaufman at the Huffington Post. All these people are doing a really great job breaking down the science for the general public. And, you know, I think the Trump administration had recognized that, and that's why you saw them try to shut down a lot of the science that was coming out of the government. So, you know, I think another priority for the Biden administration is to restore the scientific integrity of the federal government so that, you know, the government scientists are allowed to tell people what's going on to begin with. And then, you know, climate journalists and people like you and I can take that information and try to communicate the urgency to the general public.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Going back to, you know, you were talking earlier about BIPOC communities, distressed, historically marginalized, distressed Black, brown communities that have been hit hardest by climatic conditions, by climate crisis, by the pandemic, by environmental justice, environmental pollution. Let's talk about that clean energy transition, right? So you know, the good thing is that we have the Biden administration. We talked to someone about this last week where they were saying, you know, there's less conversation about, oh, natural gas is the bridge. It's about just transition. Because you know, natural gas, you just need to phase it out as quickly as you can. But how do we ensure that this clean energy transition or this clean energy economy is inclusive, is equitable? You know, because I don't want us getting into a situation where, okay, during that just transition, well, most of the jobs and most of the benefit from the billions, the trillions that will be made from a clean energy economy, it's just going to go mostly to white workers. How do we ensure that it's not, you know, okay, yeah, obviously we need to focus on these environmental justice issues, but we also need to make sure that distressed communities, historically marginalized communities, are also benefiting from this transition to a clean energy economy. Are we thinking intentionally about that?
I think that the Biden administration is really focused on that. One of the executive orders that they signed last Wednesday was designed to ensure that 40% of all the investments that we make in clean energy, in mitigating climate impacts, are in those communities that have historically faced unjust burdens of pollution. And we need to make sure that the administration holds to that commitment going forward. We need to make sure that that number is backed up by actual investments, because I agree that this is a really important priority for the industry. It's the environmental movement has, I think, kind of an unfortunate history of being a very white movement that we're trying to move forward from. Obviously, you know, I'm white and I'm here talking about this, which I feel like is evidence that we need more progress. But, you know, I think in terms of where those investments are going, the Biden administration is very focused on those impacts. And I think it's been really great that there's been more of an awareness of those impacts throughout all kinds of reporting. We're seeing more different voices being included in the reporting on the climate crisis and a greater awareness of exactly where the impacts are landing.
We've been talking with Ari Drennan, Associate Director for Communications at the Center for American Progress's Energy and Environment team. Go to AmericanProgress.org www.onwurd.org for more information. All right, really appreciate your time. Thanks so much. Keep us posted on what you all are working on, as I'm sure you always do. So we always appreciate you funneling that intelligence to us. But thanks so much for your time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
All right. Thank you. Okay, let's take a break. And when we come back on the other side, actually, we have phone lines are open at the moment. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a quick break and we'll come back with open phone lines before we transition into the noon hour. And then we have Malcolm Burnley of the Philadelphia Citizen joining us next about who didn't vote in 2020, particularly in Philly. So that should be a fascinating conversation. We'll learn a little bit more there. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. We'll be right back.
The moments, the movements, the culture, then and now, how we got here and where we're going. WHYY shines a light on our past and our progress like no one else. Tonight at 7:30, Precious Places is a community history series documenting the buildings, spaces, parks, landmarks, and other sites that hold memories of our neighborhoods and define where we live. Precious Places, tonight at 7:30 on WHYY TV 12.
Hi, Word family. Beginning Monday, February 1st, Wake Up with Word's Solomon Jones will be hosting the Big Game Trivia Contest, brought to you by Brown's Family ShopRite and the Family Business Collaborative partners Amoroso's Bakery, Dietz & Watson, and Hers Snacks. Winners of the Big Game Trivia Contest will receive a $20 gift card from Brown's Family ShopRite. Tune in February 1st and let the winnings begin.
I would like to play a little tune I just composed not so long ago.
Hey family, do you like hearing the best jazz selections aired by 3 of the best jazz announcers in Philadelphia? Well, tune in to 96.1 FM,
96.1 FM,
and 900 AM, WURD Radio, independent black media, for Freedom Sounds of Jazz.
Freedom Sounds of Jazz.
Hear Freedom Sounds of Jazz 10 p.m. Fridays with your hosts in rotation, Aquila, Jonathan Bay, and David Fritz. That's 10 p.m. Friday nights on WURD 96.1 FM and 900 AM independent black media.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
Okay, phone lines are open. Phone lines are wide open throughout the rest of this 11 o'clock hour and before we get into the noon hour. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let me go to Mr. Rick out of Germany, who's calling for a Reality Check. Mr. Rick?
Mr. Charles Ellison.
Yes, sir. How are you doing?
Oh, man, I'm dying slowly and dying painfully. Can't eat, can't digest anything. But in these last few moments of my life, I would like to ask you about the rich in America and the drive for the return to the moon and possibly Mars. How is it that they can do this if life is so messed up on Earth?
Well, one thing is, and I'm all for it. I say this as someone who's always been interested in science. I didn't go down that path, but I have a love for, I read a lot and I watch a lot of science fiction. I'm a big science fiction geek, as many of you out there probably know already. But I do feel that there is this, so I'm not against interstellar exploration. I'm not against colonizing places like the moon, Mars. I'm for that, but we have to get this planet fixed first. And we have to get the problems on this planet resolved first before we go all out on that. However, I think you have a class of people, you have a wealthy elite class of people who have the kind of resources and the kind of money to pursue interstellar travel, to pursue those goals of, for example, creating new cities and civilizations on places like the moon and Mars. Who are trying to leave all of this behind, and leaving this mess to us to sort out. And I think that that's very unfortunate, particularly when the technology is there. You know, people are acting as if, many people are acting as if, like what we had just talked about a few moments ago, Mr. Rick, with climate crisis, they're feeling like, oh, the science, the technology is not there to solve these problems. No, it is there. I read quite a bit of popular science, popular mechanics magazines. I've been doing that since I was a kid. You know, my grandfather got into the habit. He gave me a popular science subscription. And so back then, this was in like the early 80s. I remember looking at these magazines, and they were talking about this issue of, you know, carbon emissions and how to clean out and they had the technology developed back then. You know, but it's always, you know, people want to figure, they always want to make money off of it. And we have to figure that out. We have to figure out ways to disrupt those systems. We need to completely overhaul those systems, those markets, so that they are built, they are designed to not only fix problems, but to contribute overall to the common good. They're not currently designed for that. So, you know, I know a lot of people right now, for example, are feeling like there's this big, wonderful, stick it to the man moment that's going on with what would happen last week. Well, I know it's not, you know, now you're seeing a market downturn, but with what happened with these rebel traders on Reddit going up against the Wall Street hedge funds and making stocks for companies like GameStop and AMC suddenly balloon. And they're like, wow, that's a great moment. That's a fantastic, it's like this populist, poor people's revolution. And that's not the case. It's just one set of hacker white boys. It really is not the case. It's just a bunch of hacker white boys who, you know, got a little bit of money, who got money in their pockets, and they suddenly figured out a way to game the system. And so, you know, they're all going to meet for cocktails and drinks later on to sort this out and basically divide the spoils. No, it's like those systems, the way they are designed right now, and this includes politics too, they are not designed to fix these existential threats like climate crisis, that's one, or even pandemic that we're talking about right now. And we're going to have to overhaul them. We need to flip them. We need to put that kind of pressure and put that kind of change on them to start operating in that way. So, you know, everybody, you know, there's a bunch of black folks who are like, oh, look at Kwanzaa Kid. Kwanzaa Kid made a bunch of money. It's like, but, you know, it's not like I could see if I could be excited about it if there was a black business or a black organization somewhere that said, hey, you know what, y'all, we found out on Reddit that we could make billions of dollars off of GameStop or buying GameStop shares. And you know what? We're going to create a black fund and we're going to dump a bunch of billions of dollars in there and distribute that to black people, especially black people suffering. And see, that's not the kind of stuff that's going on. So that's what I'm talking about. If you want to see something radical or revolutionary happen. I'm sorry, Mr. Rick, I went on a tangent. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I would just like to say to you, I don't hate white and Jewish people on the planet. But I recognize that there are very serious games afoot from 1930 to 2030 that are designed so that these people don't get overthrown and genocided by the poor black, brown, red, and yellow masses that have been affected by their policies. And going into space is just a game played on Russia, India, and China over science knowledge to attract the children into the sciences. Our children had best be advised to pay attention to food, housing and toilet, wardrobe, on the ground in this time and for the next 40 to 50 years.
I agree with you, Mr. Rick. I appreciate you. Please hang in there. I thank you for listening, but please stay as healthy as you can, stay as strong as you can. So I suspect you're going through a difficult time as far as your health is concerned. So, that's why I really do appreciate you listening in every day and you calling in as frequently as you do. So, and it's just words of wisdom coming from Mr. Rick. Sometimes we disagree every now and then, but most of the time we're on the same page. I hear where you're coming from on that. I have to let you go because I have to take some of these other calls. So do be safe and take care out there in Germany, in Deutschland, Mr. Rick. Let me go to B out of Delaware, who's calling in for a reality check. B?
Hi, Charles. I think you're due a happy 2021. I want to say hello to you, the producer, the worldwide WURD family. Special kudos to Sarah Lomax-Reese, the Lomax family, and all of the producers and the host who keep us informed, connected, and grounded. We went through a horrible 2020, 2021. As it is going, is not looking a whole lot better, except that we have you and we have WURD here to give us some insight into how to navigate and come up with our new reality in 2021. I appreciated the previous report about environmental issues. What I want to say, and it's disturbing me, is we're talking about the president talking about investing in our communities. Right now, that same standard is being used to gentrify us out of our communities. In the 70s, when we got investment in the community that was designed to put housing there for us, we are now finding that the investment is going to the geography, and the geography is not including us. This has got to stop. We don't want to talk about reparations. We want to talk about all of the plethora of problems that we are going through. But those problems have to say Black African American descendants of slaves have got to get reciprocity in how we figure our policy today, but reparations to repair the damage that our policies have done in the past. And I want to say to the WURD family, please get your membership for less than $0.25 a day. This is how we're going to survive. No one is giving us the information that you're bringing to us, and no one is concerned about resolving the issues. But this nonsense that has been being used to talk about where we're going to invest the money without demanding that the people who live there get to stay there and benefit from the investment of our tax dollars has got to stop. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for all the information you bring us. WURD members, please get your memberships up. And thank you so much, Charles.
Thank you, Ms. B. I appreciate you. Thanks for calling. Thanks for listening, calling in. I appreciate the insights that you just, once again, we have a lot of nuggets, just golden nuggets of wisdom being dropped here this morning on Reality Check. And as we head into the afternoon, which happens quite frequently on this program, just these really profound moments. As Star Wars, as Star Wars, you know, they call it the Force. So yeah, you just feel those movements in the Force. I'm having a friend reminding me what Texas they're listening at. Yeah, you do feel that in many ways. And so let's continue that. Let's continue that legacy, continue that struggle. Let me go to Sister Murray out of Northern Liberties, calling in for a reality check. And phone lines are open too, by the way, still 215-634 if you'd like to join in on this conversation. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. I should also check out Facebook Live, by the way. I haven't been on there yet. Sorry about that. So let me go to Facebook Live and see what you all are saying there too. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Sister Murray out of Northern Liberties, how are you doing? Good morning.
Hey, Charles, how are you?
All right. Hanging in there.
Thanks for taking my call. Excellent,
all right.
Excellent show. Excellent. Michael Kors, you know he's the man, right? You know he's the man. Okay. My husband just listens to him faithfully. This brother is so bad. I mean, but he's a good bad. Like John Lewis says, he's good trouble, okay? Listen, let me tell you something. Your radio show is blowing up like crazy. Everybody wants to listen to WURD. And I enjoy my sweatshirt, too. I enjoy my coffee mug. I enjoy my onWURD T-shirt. Listen, Solomon. Charles. Listen.
Yes, ma'am.
You have to have the complexion for the connection. See, the capital we can't move forward until we get everybody that stormed the Capitol. We can't let nobody go. Nobody. Because you know, if that was your child or my child or me or you, you know we'd be sitting behind the bars, right? Your parents will be out there screaming and crying and kicking and hollering, and you'll be still behind the bars. You won't be home with mama. You won't be able to do Snapchat and none of that stuff because you're going to be behind the bars. No phone, no nothing. So, you know you got to have the complexion for the connection. Charles, keep doing what you're doing. You're doing a great job, everybody at WRD. And listen, for those who are listening and you haven't gotten to WRD, get it. Get your membership. Buy your neighbor a membership. Buy somebody. Somebody got a birthday coming up real soon. Get a membership. Take care, Charles.
All right, you too. Sister Murray is absolutely right. We can't say it loud enough. If it was a bunch of black folks that had stormed the Capitol, had stole highly sensitive, top secret information contained on laptops from the third most powerful person in government to sell to a geopolitical rival that aims nuclear weapons at us, we would be underneath the jail. Well, first of all, there would have been hundreds of us slaughtered in horrific, like horror movie-like moments of terror as Capitol Police officers and other military, everything, every asset, every law enforcement, paramilitary, military asset in Washington, D.C., and there's a lot of it, would have been armed. I mean, would have been rapidly deployed and with laser focus trained right on those black people, and it would have been a slaughter. We know this. I'm not saying, this is not hyperbole. This is not speculation. This is truth. This is truth. If that had happened, if there had been some kind of black Jacobin, Toussaint Louverture revolution of black people raiding and breaching the seat of government, that we'd still be, there would be mass funerals still going on to this day. We know this. People walking through the snow. You know, my child died on January 6th. It'd still be going on right now. We'd still be talking about it, still mourning. And we can't say this loud enough. We cannot say this loud enough. It is unreal that there are these conversations that are happening right now among prosecutors, federal prosecutors and people elsewhere, even state and local prosecutors who know that they have people in their communities. They have people who are serving on their police departments, and people can't figure out what to do about them, how to prosecute them. It's not boggling the mind because we understand what kind of legal system and what kind of political system we're up against. And we understand that this is how it works, and it's deliberate. But folks cannot say this loud enough. I appreciate Sister Murray pointing that out. Yeah, you got to have a complexion for that connection. It's infuriating. It is like, I feel, maybe that's why I do read a lot of science fiction. It's just to go into another universe. Like, let me open up a comic book, because sometimes I can't deal with it. It stresses me out. It stresses me out. The more I think about it and the deeper I think about it, and I think about how just sinister and just how pure evil, people want to say, oh, it's racism and it's bigoted, it's prejudice. No, it's just evil. It's just pure, just like, it's the kind of evil, like, just right now, even just thinking about it, just makes me nauseous. It really does. It's just this pure evil that people feel, and then they want to, they have the nerve to talk about Jesus. That's what really, that's what's even more sick and twisted and demented about it. We don't have the nerve to just on Sundays and have whole television channels and take up time on the television channels we watch each day with the hypocrisy, and talking about, and having people meet in big megadome churches talking about Jesus. Like, really? It's just the evil of it. Excuse me. I gotta take a break because I need to go to the bathroom. Yeah, because I'm nauseous from that. Let's take a break. well, something. Let me try to not get nauseous by just talking about how important it is. Let me try to get optimistic here, because there's room for optimism. The room for optimism is when you sign, just like Sister Murray said, is when you sign up for your 4WURD membership. So that's where there's reason to keep moving, to stay on mission, to stay on point, to stay on target, right? To stay on target. So it's signing up for that 4WURD membership. So wordradio.com/4WURD. You get all those benefits of being a 4WURD member, but you also support a trusted, on mission, on point institution like WURD. That's why that's so important. This is part of the mission. This is part of the movement. We do that every day here on programs like this on WURD. That's why this is so essential. This is why this is so important. This is a real battle of good versus evil. So we're on the side of good. So at least I feel good. I feel good about that. I can wake up every morning, or at least every Monday, Thursday morning, feeling good about, from that perspective, I'm like, okay, I'm on the good side of the force. So, I'm staying on target. All right, let's go ahead and take a break, and we'll come back with more open phone lines. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. We'll be right back.
Happy New Year, Philly. It's Solomon Jones. The pandemic of 2020 blew the roof off of life as we know it and forced us to make radical decisions once thought impossible. Many parents and grandparents turned to the option of a public cyber education. In thousands of instances, they sought assistance from the one true pioneer and industry leader in public cyber education, Commonwealth Charter Academy. Visit ccaeducate.me and exercise your right to choose a safe, hassle-free, student-focused learning environment your kids deserve. CCA delivers elite online instruction streamed directly to the safety and comfort of your living room. They provide a laptop and headset along with internet connectivity that includes financial assistance, all at no cost to families. CCA has been the gold standard in school choice for nearly 20 years. Visit ccaeducate.me and ring in 2021 with a 5-star learning experience. Again, that's ccaeducate.me.
I'm Anthony McLaughlin. Been denied insurance? Call 888-307-0505. Life insurance, age 0 to 85, no examination needed. Homeowners insurance, any home, any condition, same-day coverage, 888-307-0505. Auto insurance, we can have you covered in 15 minutes. Business insurance, call 24 hours a day, 888-307-0505. I'm Anthony McLaughlin. When you need insurance, I can help.
Hello, I'm Jose Hernandez, and I have been using a wheelchair since my accident in 1995. I guess if I had one message for the general public, it would be that I appreciate your help, but please ask first. I know you mean well, but I've actually got everything under control. And if I don't, I'll ask for assistance. People with disabilities just want the same respect and consideration as everyone else.
This is a message from United Spinal Association. Download our disability etiquette booklet at unitedspinal.org.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check. Phone lines are open, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check, 215-634-8065, toll free, 866, right? 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. So 96.1 FM, 900 AM in Philly. Speaking of Philly, we are at 51 homicides thus far in Philadelphia. 51 homicides thus far, not even a full 3 days into February. So had more homicides in Philadelphia than you had days in the month of January. So homicides are up 34% from where they were last year. At this same time last year, about 38 homicides at this point during 2020. Things do not seem to be going in the opposite direction as far as violence is concerned in the city of Philadelphia. And that's also the case for most cities throughout the United States. There has been, I was telling everyone the other day, in fact, it's gotten so bad in the United States as far as homicide rates, a lot of it being driven by pandemic too, but there have been some other things that have been happening even before pandemic came down. that have been factoring into or contributing to the violence, but it's happening all over. But The Economist, an international global magazine, was talking about how bad the homicide rates are in multiple cities, including in Philly. Shooting victims have gone up by nearly 62% in Philadelphia compared to this same time last year. So there have been 158 shooting victims in Philadelphia thus far. 158, imagine, shooting victims in Philadelphia thus far in 2021. 274 shooting incidents in Philadelphia. That's about 57% more than what we saw this same time last year. So everything seems to be getting worse as far as homicides are concerned. Mark my words on this. Folks have got to, okay, if you are in, because I'm having this issue like with, if you're a member of a church, and your church or your community gathering is not talking about or not addressing or giving some kind of nod to this rising violent crime and homicide rate in cities all throughout the United States, and that specifically is hitting disproportionately black communities, you really need to question the leadership of that church. Okay, you really need to start, if you're not hearing this conversation being held loud or hearing court held on this issue loud and clear amongst church leaders, amongst elected leaders, community leaders. I know there's a whole lot of issues and problems and things that we have to deal with, but people are going to have to make noise about this and figure out a way internally as a community how we grapple with this and solve this, because we're going to come up to a point, mark my words, where we're going to have Crime Bill Part 2, 1994 Crime Bill Part 2. It's coming because no one's talking about this stuff. Everybody's like, but when, and it's rightfully so, when, cops shoot someone unarmed or when, they pepper spray, a 9-year-old girl, we make a lot of noise about those things, and we should. We ought to. But we're going to have to make the same equal amount of noise, y'all, on these high murder rates that are spiraling out of control in our communities. We're going to have, it's an uncomfortable conversation. I know people don't want to talk about because it's the majority of people, the victims are black, and the majority of the people who are committing this violence in those communities are black people, and people don't like having that conversation. But you know what? You better have it now before they start having it on Capitol Hill, and then they come up with a Crime Bill Part 2. And then 20 years from now, we're going to have the exact same conversation because y'all weren't proactive now as you should have been on this issue. It was like the brother who called in, who was it? Yusef called in the other day, and he was like, you know what? I know we need to have a conversation about, how we, reform the way that police are policing, but we need to have a conversation about how we handle anger in our own community. Like, we need to have anger management sessions with it. I totally agree with him on that. So we got to figure out a way as a community. How are we going to grapple with this? Because it's out of control. It's not just in Philly. It's everywhere. If you have friends and family in other places, they're telling you, they're like, girl, it's out of control. It's like, yeah, I can't walk outside my house. Man, I can't do that for a pandemic. And now they shooting everyone outside. I'm telling you, Crime Bill Part 2 is going to come up. I'm sorry. Let me go to Diane out of South Philly, who's calling in for a reality check. Ms. Diane?
Hi, Charles. I really enjoy your program every day. I listen to you, and I learn so much. I really do, and I just thank you for all the great information that you bring to us and all the guests that you bring to us. I thank you so much. But what I call for, what happened at the Capitol, this is white privilege at its best. At its best. You ask yourself, who does that and get away with something like that? If there would have been Black Lives Matter up there doing that, all of them would have been dead, And it's just so unfair. And what we're going to have to do, we got a governor race coming up. We got to get in front of it. We got a Senate race coming up. We can't wait to the last minute, to talk about this governor race and the Senate race. And another thing, Charles, Donald Trump, Steve Bannon, Steve Bannon was fired from his administration, right? And what he did, he take people when they do something wrong. Other words, he bailed him out, right? Mm-hmm. And Banner, Steve Banner, he's a political strategist. What I think, this is my opinion, what's going to happen, this man is going to run 2024, whatever, in 4 years, and Steve Banner is going to be his political strategy. He didn't get Steve Banner out for nothing, because Steve Banner was talking about him, too, and his children. So we better watch Donald Trump. He's a dangerous, dangerous man, and we got to make sure we do.
And, you know, what we need to, and to your point, too, I think you make a real good point there, Diane, but I think what needs to happen, two things need to happen. One is that we need to make sure that we're very clear about the legal path from impeachment trial, which is getting ready to happen on Monday, and it's more than likely that there won't be a conviction out of the Senate, but the impeachment trial has to take place, and that accountability mechanism has to be activated. We have to do what we have to do on this, but the legal path has to be open towards additional federal lawsuits or federal actions to activate 14th Amendment, Section 3, disqualifying President Trump from running for any kind of office in the future ever. So that's one. Two, I'm not sure, you know, we were talking about lawsuits, and I didn't get a chance to ask Michael Cord this question earlier. Maybe we'll ask him next time. Anyone who's a lawyer and in a position to do so should be suing Donald Trump. Like, there should be hundreds of thousands of lawsuits filed in federal courts everywhere against Donald Trump and his family, wearing them out. I mean, just wearing their asses out in court, like bankrupting them through lawsuits. That's what a lot of people do. That's what, like, competitors, corporate competitors, do to other companies. They sue them to put them out of business. I don't understand why I'm not hearing more of that. Like, I'd just be like suing, just like, oh, complaint here, complaint here. I mean, yeah, there's a likelihood some of them may on technicalities get thrown out of court, but just wear them out, wear them out, wear them out. Like, we should be wearing these people out. Like, we just should be just constant flow and fury of lawsuits. Donald Trump, Ivanka Trump, Donald Trump Jr., Jared Kushner, just sue them into oblivion. We should be hearing more about that. I mean, that's how you take care of that. We used to do stuff like that. That's what civil rights. We think civil rights movement was all. We used to do that. Thurgood Marshall and all. We used to do that. We were the original gangsters of that. Lawsuits, just suing the hell out of white people. We used to sue white people just suing them into oblivion until they cried uncle. They're like, oh, okay, we'll let you use the bathrooms and sit at the lunch counters and sit in the front of the bus. Like, we used to do that. Like, I mean, we need to do more of that. I'm sorry, Diane, I gotta let you go. Let me go to George out of Center City, who's calling in for a reality check. George?
How are you today? Charles,
all right,
how you doing today? Charles,
all right.
Two things I want to hit on real quick. One is that, the thing where we talking about the violence and all, that's happening everywhere, but they're making arrests. Look in Atlanta, look in out there in Milwaukee, look in every place there is, even in California. California's cut down on their shootings and everything tremendously. But if you look across the country, the Proud Boys and everybody else is the ones selling the guns, okay? They're pouring them guns in the black community, and everywhere else they're knocking off gun houses like they do a SEPTA stop here. But here we have our police department who's in such a rage. Well, I wouldn't say it's them. Their boss is in such a rage, which is John. He's mad because some Negroes told him off about whatever it was, and they all in a pissing contest. Everybody want to say who got the bigger whatever. So, therefore, the public is suffering. When McNesby told everybody, there's going to come a day that you're going to beg us to come in your neighborhood. Watch and see. And he's proven his point.
Yeah, but George, you and I agree on a lot. We do. We really do agree on a lot. I just don't. I'm having a hard time agreeing with that one big point. I know you make it often, but these are people who get paid taxpayer money. They've taken an oath. They're just supposed to do their job.
Charles,
a police union chief should not be dictating the level of security and public safety in the city. I would just full stop on that. I don't understand. I mean, I understand but don't get me wrong, George. I do understand the politics of it. I understand that that's the game that's being played. But something's got to give here. It really does, and it shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be that it's the union chief is telling his people quietly, hey, don't patrol as tough. Don't do your job because I need to make these people cry uncle and come to me and kiss my ring. If that's the case, George, John McNesby should be ashamed of himself. I mean, that's petty. You don't think that that's kind of petty and evil? You don't think that is?
Charles,
like, no, seriously, it is.
Charles, you can make all the greatest speeches in the world. It doesn't change.
It's not about making a speech. It's just I'm tired of seeing people get killed.
Come on, man. And I speak on it, but you know what?
Okay, what the heck can the cops do their jobs? Just do their jobs.
It's a price you pay for stupidity. When you have these certain special group of Negroes going in the room making deals for you, speaking on your behalf, and talking all that big willy stuff, this is what you get. You got a police commissioner who's incompetent, which that's what you asked for, that's what you got. Now you can't say nothing about it because they gave you what you asked for. Kenny gave these Negroes exactly what they asked for. Now everybody all of a sudden want to throw under the bus. You know why they want to throw under the bus? But they can't say it. They got to keep their mouth shut. White folks is tired of her, okay? Now, when white folks get tired
of her, because the Philadelphia Inquirer finally put an editorial out saying she needs to go. She needs to resign.
Right.
Now people feel it's like you wait for white folks to give you the signal, and now suddenly, oh yeah, you know what? Yeah, she needs to go.
Like Rebecca Reinhardt, but Rebecca wrote the perfect thing on the whole thing. When the city had to pay out $1.5 billion in damages to the insurance companies, because when they went in the courtroom, they showed one thing. Her and her people standing there on the corner while people were running in the stores, taking stuff out, putting in their cars. They showed people riding the subways with stolen merchandise, and she did nothing. She told the police department to stand down. So the city was held liable for $1.5 billion.
That's a lot of money. Yeah, it's a lot of money.
Apparently it's not. Let me move on. I'm going to try to get as much as I can.
Real quick.
Charles, you had Michael Court on, and I was really trying to get through. The city, it was, we had Paula Patrick, we had McCafferty, and, we had like 3 or 4 judges ruled on the Philadelphia Parking Authority that they could not and should not and stop giving people inspection stickers for expired inspection stickers because that's not their function. And they went as far as to tell them that if you keep this up, you're going to have to end up paying all that money back that you have collected. Now, that went up to the Supreme Court where McCafferty was at. Paula Patrick was in motions court, and she reamed them out better than anybody. And who's a better judge than Paula Patrick? Fair, knows the law, and, give it to you the facts. But when they went on there, they just went on. I mean, something has to be done about them. That's called stealing. They're stealing from the state. So the next time you have Josh on, you should ask him about that. And when is he going to have the police commissioner on? But she's looking for help now,
we haven't. Yeah, that's something we're working on. We are working on the police commissioner and working also on the Philadelphia school superintendent as well. So I've been in touch with the superintendent's office, by the way, and I know Troy's been in touch with the police commissioner's office as well. It's it's being worked on. So. But no, thanks for asking. Thanks about the Philadelphia Parking Authority. That's something else I'm irritated about, too. And I remember tweeting openly about that just about a couple of weeks ago. Councilmember Isaiah Thomas responded to that tweet. I was getting some complaints from folks about the parking ticket situation in Philly. Let me take a break. We have to go into the 12 o'clock hour. We have a citizen segment coming up next with Malcolm Burnley. So stay tuned here on Reality Check. We'll be right back.
This Black Artist Story 365 vignette is brought to you by JD's Auto Body and Painting.
Welcome to Black Artist Story 365. My name is Envy McKee. Get into this episode where we explore the art and artistry of iconic Black sci-fi. First of all, Black science fiction isn't some newfangled subgenre of sci-fi that came around when Marvel decided to finally put out Black Panther as a movie. Black sci-fi has been around since the beginning. And if we're honest, it started in the beginning when God said, "In the beginning was the Word," and it was good. But we'll contend with the beginning being West Africa, where the very first Black sci-fi authors used the oral tradition for publishing. We'll also contend that the Word, in this case, was stories our ancestral griots told about creation, metaphysics, and culture. Stories of jumping universes that they shared as poetry and song and dance around bright hot fires, powered by the rhythmic thundering of the drum. So who are some of the greats in Black sci-fi? Like in any genre, it depends on who you ask. I got 5 on it that Octavia Butler would likely top most folk top 5 in Black spec fiction because of her 90s Parable series, which included Parable of the Sower and Parable of the Talents. Samuel R. Delany could be considered one of the OGs of the genre, and he taught at Temple University. Nalo Hopkinson is a renowned science fiction and fantasy writer, professor, and editor. Lest we forget Tanana Reeve Dew's The Good House, Black Rose, and Joplin's Ghost. Karen Lord's The Best of All Possible Worlds. N.K. Jemisin, The 100,000 Kingdoms. Stephen Barnes, Lion's Blood. Minister Faust, Nnedi Okorafor, Andrea Hairston, Jeffrey Thorne, Nisi Shaw, and Carl Hancock Rux. And of course, Tommy Adeyemi, Children of Blood and Bone. So that's it for this episode of Black Artist Story 365. My name is Envy McKee. To hear more, tune in to The Envy McKee Show, Friday nights, 7 to 10 p.m., right here on WURD.
This Black Artist Story 365 vignette was brought to you by JD's Auto Body and Painting for all your auto body and detailing needs.
Tune in this Saturday from 5 to 6 p.m. for the Islam Today Show, with a perspective on moral guidance and Islamic principles and values.
The WURD Radio Newsletter, keeping you informed, engaged, and connected. Sign up by visiting wordradio.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and type your email address under Connect with Us. You'll receive the latest information on WURD Radio, messages from our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax Reese, exclusive articles and multimedia content, and resources. Stay informed with the WURD Radio Newsletter. This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Independent Black Media. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and wordradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check. We are now in our citizen segment. We have joining us right now, in fact, Malcolm Burnley. Malcolm Burnley is an occasional contributor to the Philadelphia Citizen, wrote this wonderful piece that came out actually last week. It's entitled, Who Didn't Vote in 2020? Philly's once-in-a-generation turnout helped give Joe Biden the presidency, but in North Philly's Hunting Park, voters mostly stayed home. What will get them to the polls next time? So we have Malcolm Burnley. You've heard him here many times on WURD. He's written for a number of great publications throughout the city's well-known journalist in the city of Philadelphia. Writing for publications like the Philadelphia Citizen. Go to philadelphiacitizen.org, by the way, for more there. Great publication that I occasionally write for as well. So we're trying to get that Reality Check column returned to you soon. It's coming. But in the meantime, we'll continue to talk with them and talk with folks like Malcolm Burnley, who joins us by Skype. We can't see him, though, but we can hear him here on Reality Check. Malcolm, what's happening?
Not much, besides my not being able to figure out how to change my privacy settings on this. I downloaded the new app and
got it.
Issues. But thanks for having me nonetheless, and
that's all right.
I appreciate
No,
it.
You got to keep those privacy settings in check, right? You do, especially these days, right? Everyone's hacking you from all sorts of unknown dark corners. Yeah, so no, I get it.
Definitely true. So.
Yeah, so you need those privacy settings. Great piece here. Really appreciate it. I highly recommend everyone to read it when you get a chance. Go to philadelphiacitizen.org if you haven't read it already. Who didn't vote in 2020? Because we've talked a lot about, and the assumption is that, voter turnout throughout the city of Philadelphia was so huge. Who didn't turn out, right? Yeah, I mean, it seems like everyone turned out who was able to vote in this epic 2020 election. But give us some context here. What happened?
There's
66% turnout, but go ahead.
Yeah, I think the starting point for the story was actually in part to reflect on the kind of roller coaster ride that Philly was taken on after the election regarding turnout and kind of our role in Joe Biden assuming the White House, because, we all saw on television the big celebrations, and there was kind of the sense that Philly saved democracy, at least in some corners, on the day when the results were announced. But then the days after, there was kind of two schools of thought about turnout. On the one hand, turnout was higher than it's ever been since 1984 in the city. But on the other hand, when you look at how much turnout went up elsewhere in the state, we were actually below the average in that respect. So while it was both very good and historic, there was also something to be said about we didn't ride on the same wave that the rest of the country or even the rest of the state did. So I was trying to look into, more specifically, where was turnout actually low? And also, I think a lot of coming out after the election, there's a lot of emphasis about what President Trump and what, current President Biden did or didn't do right in the election. But we also have a tradition in Philly of low turnout in non-presidential years. So kind of asking the question not only about turnout in this election cycle, but what lessons can we take going forward to try to increase turnout, and where should we be doing that and focusing that attention?
Yeah, no, I think that's so. You looked at Ward 7, especially turnout throughout the city, 66%, and Ward 7 is below 50%. That's North Philly, and so let's talk more about what happened there. Communities and distressed places like North Philly, they really don't feel like they're a part of the city's decision making or its political process, its governance. They feel forgotten, and I can understand why people do feel forgotten. So, yeah, I see it every day. I see it. I mean, City Hall, it can be a very forgetful place. Sometimes unintentionally, and other times, most times, I think deliberately. But go ahead, talk about like what that vibe and that mood is there in Ward 7 to make turnout below 50% in an election like 2020 that everyone knew about.
Exactly, yeah. And I really wanted to get beyond, I think some assumptions that people make about a type of neighborhood, a type of North Philly neighborhood with high poverty rates, and just say, people who are poor don't vote. But that's not true. And other wards and other sections of the city where there's high poverty rates, turnout is actually at least on par, if not higher than city average. And so it gets to that question that you said about kind of this connection they have with local government, local services, not feeling like they're getting anything out of government. And it's something, that came up in the conversations with folks on the ground who are doing get out the vote work in Hunting Park, just about what they've been seeing, in 2020, or what they were seeing in 2020 with the pandemic and people losing jobs and people being concerned for their safety, and kind of more basic quality of life concerns that exist in the neighborhood, and not feeling connected or not seeing the connection from their vote to government delivering those services for them. And so, I know this is somewhat of an old refrain, but every 4 years when presidential elections happen, there's a ton of get out the vote efforts, from campaigns, from nonpartisan folks. But if you haven't done the work in the 4 years leading up to that, just from a local government perspective, you're not going to be able to suddenly make people think of themselves as voters. It has to be kind of a more long-term connection, I think.
It's interesting too, because elected officials and people who work in the political business, I work in that business to an extent, the advocacy business, the business of also governance. They understand that politics and even the policy making arena, all of it is a transactional process. So they understand that, there is a bit of, even though it's unofficial, but there is that quid pro quo that is there. Like, I rub your back, you rub mine. Everyone who works in that space understands that it's transactional by its nature. However, when then suddenly you have distressed, marginalized populations, when you suddenly have black populations in poor Philly demanding things and also saying, hey, we understand and we see y'all, it's transactional, it's a problem. Suddenly it's not transactional anymore. It's like, but it's been this is how this thing works, right? This is what we've been watching you do this, and sometimes y'all tell us, and so we expect that we want to get something out of this vote, but then that's a lot of times that's just not the case. And so I guess that's what we're seeing unfolding in North Philly. That's why we're seeing a situation like this in Hunting Park.
Yeah, and I didn't want to just rely on just the anecdotal interviews that I did. I also wanted to, and also the data from this election. I talked to a researcher at Chestnut Hill College named Jeffrey Carroll, who published some really interesting papers around looking at Philly voter turnout on a neighborhood level. And just to speak to what you said, one of the interesting things he compared was high Latino neighborhoods, including Hunting Park in North Philly, compared to certain wards and neighborhoods in West Philly, where turnout was much higher despite high poverty rates. And one of the things that he found, that came out is exactly what you said, because there's more of a tradition of, even if you want to call it quid pro quo, between political dynasties in West Philadelphia, like a Hardy Williams or like, the Blackwells. And it wasn't even that, they were popular in many respects, but even the folks who didn't vote for those politicians, there was an underlying assumption about what politics was about, and that, you should be getting something in return for your vote. And so in West Philly, even the folks, who didn't support a Hardy Williams or the Blackwells, there was still that establishment about what the vote means, and that you as a citizen should expect something. And what Jeffrey Carroll was talking about was that relationship maybe is being built now with certain neighborhoods in North Philly, but for so many generations, they didn't have that relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's just very important. Is just the relationship building. What are the? I mean, were you talking to Philadelphia elected officials and ward leaders? Because ward leaders, I mean, they should be doing that groundwork, and it should be a 300 and ward leaders committee people. That should be a 365-day year process. And it's, but apparently it's not. I mean, if you're the ward leader in Ward 7, like, you should be fired. I mean, I gotta look at who the Philly ward leader is. I'm gonna look at that while you talk. No, seriously, like, it's like like, really, you just got under 50%. I'm gonna put that out there. I hope the Ward 7 leader, I really do hope, or people who know that person, like, is hearing this, like, they should be like ousted. Like, you should be fired, fam. Like, why are you ward leader? Like, that's my thing. I mean, ward leader to me is a heavy responsibility. And ward leader means that I'm a leader and I'm supposed to turn people out.
Right.
The fact that that's under 50%, that you haven't figured that out, you haven't cracked that code yet, yo, you need to go out. And so, I mean, if anyone, Ward 7, I'm putting that out there. If you have a problem with me saying that, call in right now and, like, tell me to, like, I will tell you, yeah, you need to get fired, dude, or sister, or whomever you are. I don't know who that is. But anyway, go ahead. No, it just, it angers me sometimes, because I'm like, these people, they put themselves in these the fashionable and, like, high positions in politics, and they don't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, put someone in that position who understands these dynamics that you reported on, Malcolm, and get people to turn out and also connect them to their government.
Yeah, it's a good point about the ward infrastructure and maybe how it's leveraged or not. One thing I didn't include in the story that I should have thought about was vacancies for, like, committee people in Ward 7. I don't have a sense for, maybe those positions aren't being filled and maybe there's a struggle filling them. But I mean, what I did see was, there were certain wards that had very different demographic than Ward 7, but who did, I think, leverage exactly what you're talking about with, which I wrote about in the story, up in Roxborough, for example. Again, very different demographic, but nonetheless, some committee people in that ward wrote handwritten notes to over 14,000 people, and then followed it up with personalized notes about, folks who weren't registered, and then they cross-referenced that against folks who didn't vote in the primary. And so, there is work that can be done to more specifically target non-voters.
Okay, got it. I'm looking on here now. Well, first of all, it just so happens I'm going to PhillyWardLeaders.com, which has a list. The site's down. Like, like, oh no, he's getting ready to go to Philly Ward Leaders. Let's shut the site down. Like, like, he's about to do it. But that's okay. I went to 70.org and they've got that list.
Nice.
Yeah, Angel Cruz. That's the Ward 7 leader, Angel Cruz. Angel Cruz needs to get fired.
And yeah,
the Philly ward leader. That's the Philly Democratic ward leader. Yo, Angel Cruz, let Angel Cruz know I said on Reality Check, he needs to get fired. Replace him with someone who can do the work. Maybe a young person who's got more energy who can do that work. Because that's just, in an election like that, under 50%, like, that's unacceptable. I'm sorry, go ahead, Malcolm.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I only touched on it at the very end of the story, but Councilwoman Maria Quinones-Sanchez, this is part of her district, and I think she, by all accounts, does a very good job with this. But one of the things that's notable about her, I was going to say her presidency, but her tenure in city council, is that she's had a lot of disputes with the local Democratic Party and with ward leaders in Ward 7. And I think, I'm sure that trickles down to get out the vote efforts, that it's not as much of a unified front or unified effort or sharing of resources as much as it's probably different factions within that structure trying to get people out to vote.
Have you didn't talk to the ward leader, the Ward 7 leader?
I've reached out to a few different ward leaders for the piece, but
didn't return your call.
Yeah, I didn't get a response. I did talk to some committee people. Ward 7 was harder to reach certain committee people, but a lot of them talked about the, I guess, breakdown of civic or community that I think exists in all facets of life right now. But talking about the connective tissue of the neighborhood, once that kind of starts to fray, how difficult it is, I think, to bring that back together. So they did speak to that, as well as, I think just, again, these quality of life concerns about trash and, the opioid epidemic and how they
parking tickets.
Yep, things like
on
that.
Cars, the Philadelphia Parking Authority preying on them. Yeah. It's just everything's out there, and I'm trying not to joke too much here, Malcolm, but it's the only way not to not get angry, right? And I think your piece really it draws that from me. Like it's a well-written piece. I like this piece, and you're making some great points here. But I just get angry every time I think about it. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mike. Malcolm.
No, the one last thing I do want to contribute. I mean, it's very clear that in certain areas, including Huntington Park, turnout was very, very low. The one thing that I hadn't really thought about until I drilled down into the numbers was there are certain factors that probably make it look at least marginally worse than it actually is. And part of that is in certain neighborhoods where there's a high level of transients or even a high level of renters, the way we calculate turnout percentages as the number of registered voters or the number of voters over the number of registered voters, because if people move between neighborhoods or move out of the city in places where there's a high degree of that, the voter rolls are actually somewhat inflated because it takes a while for people to be stripped off of those. So it's possible that, there are people who showed up as non-voters in Huntington Park who moved to a different neighborhood or moved out of the city even, registered, actually voted, but it's just, on account of the way we calculate those things, because in neighborhoods with high home ownership, it's going to be more consistent, those voter rolls. So it is worth noting, but it's almost impossible to know, at least within the context of one election cycle, how much of an impact that did make.
That's a good point. I meant to ask you about that too, because you talked about that. You went into some detail in your piece. Because you have the city saying, or the city commissioner's office saying that, we have nearly 1.2 million people registered in the city of Philadelphia. So I said that throughout the election year. I'm like, if you got 1.2 million people registered in the city of Philadelphia, why do you have, especially in local elections, under 30% turnout? Then it should be 1.2 million people voting out of a city of 1.6 million people, but only 11% of the population on average consistently votes. And that's a problem, but you just explained it. Did you talk to the city commissioner's office about that?
I did reach out mostly regarding some numbers. In retrospect, probably should have done a little more reporting pre-election, because after the election, with everything that happened, particularly in Philly, reaching out to the commissioners, they were all over national news with, the president, making his statements about the ineligible votes in Philly and whatnot, some of that nonsense. So yeah, that wasn't the best timing on my behalf. So I did not reach or interview them for this particular piece. But, I have heard the city commissioners talk frequently about this, and they do put out really good information about turnout as a percentage of the population. I did use some of those resources to make certain points in the story. And one of them that I was actually shocked to hear, because I've read it in so many other stories about turnout in the 60s and 70s, or at least in the 60s, reaching 90% at 1 year. And while 90% turnout obviously sounds way better than our turnout this year, which was also historic in terms of recent elections, if you actually calculate it as a percentage of the population, we're pretty much on par with how we voted in 1960. So this has been a problem persistently over time, part of the numbers and the reason why they fluctuate is as a result of how we register people. And actually, because we've gotten better at registering folks, the turnout numbers have dropped.
Yeah, interesting. I got to let you go. I really want to ask you this. I'm trying not to be picky here, but I had to call you out a little bit on this. Now, maybe it wasn't you. Maybe it was the editor. You used this pejorative, Democrat-led instead of Democratic-led city. Why was there a reason for that? It's like the conversation of Obamacare versus Affordable Care Act. It's like Democrat-led is like it's like a Republican slander. And I wonder, was that the editor who made that decision?
No, I think that's probably me, and didn't get stripped out. I guess what I meant was, you're right, Democratic-led probably would have.
I'm putting you on the spot. I'm sorry. It's one of my it's a pet peeve of mine. It's not you. This is a beautiful piece. It's a wonderful piece. That's why we brought you.
Oh,
on.
No.
I had to throw that out there. I just like.
Was that in the context of kind of like last summer when they were talking about, particularly about all the protest movements? Is that when the term really seemed to? Yeah, it's Republicans have used it for years, and I remember, who else used to make a big thing of it? Chris Matthews, when he was doing Hardball on MSNBC, and he used to get on Republicans when they come on his show. They're like, "Yeah, Democrat." But he's like, "Why do you keep saying that?" He's like, "You're using it. It is. They created it. Republicans created it because they don't like to say Democratic because then it makes the Democratic Party more positive Got it.
than they want it to be. And so, so that's why you always hear if you go on Fox, they say like Democrat-led or Democrat majority. It's like, no, it's Democratic. Just say it the correct way, like the English language demands you say it. It's the same thing with Obamacare. Like I've been getting on people, stop saying Obamacare. It's Affordable Care Act, because then they see the polling data where you have like troves of white voters voting against or hating the Affordable Care Act because they think Obamacare is a totally separate thing. It's wild. It's it's amazing, and it's just pure evil the way that Republican messaging masters. And I know a few of them, but they really play games with language like that, and it gets people stirred up and and voting in really terrible and racist ways. But anyway, I just wanted, just for the sake of
I appreciate that.
To mess with you a little bit on that. Yeah.
I will drop a line to the editor too about possibly.
Yeah, I remember. I remember being on set one time. I used to go on Hardball every now and then when Chris Matthews was, because he grew up in Hunting Park. He grew up in Northfield. A lot of people don't. When it was like a lot of Irish people. Yeah. Chris Matthews was like poor Irish, poor Irish Catholic, and he was like, when I met him, he and I both got excited because I grew up in Logan. He grew up near there. He was like, oh yeah, and then one time we were talking about it. He's like, yeah, that annoys me too. Yeah.
So, I mean, words do matter, and
words are just it's something else how that's played. This was a great piece. I appreciate. I want to bring you back on, Malcolm. We don't talk enough. Like, this has been a minute since we had you on.
I know. I was
what happened?
I was like, woke up and I don't even know
what happened.
Pandemic. So
we gotta get you on, man.
Yeah, I'd love to come on again soon.
Yeah, we got to do reunions on reality. Like because I had Michael Cord on earlier, and these are some of my favorite folks: Michael Cord, Malcolm Burnley, and others. But I just don't see y'all for like a long time. We don't talk, and because and you did some great reporting for us for EcoWord.com a while back too. So we should look into seeing how we can get you back there once we get some things rolled out more with EcoWord, going through reconfiguring some things. But Malcolm, real good. Where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Malcolm Burnley. It's probably the best way to keep up with my work.
Yeah. Okay, great. I'm following you. I see you're following me at Malcolm Burnley. Once again, go to this. It's a great piece. People in Philly need to read it. Who Didn't Vote in 2020? That's by Malcolm Burnley. Go to the PhiladelphiaCitizen.org. It's a feature story that came out about a week or so ago. It's an important piece. Philly really needs to read it. Malcolm, great work. Thanks again for joining us, man. We'll have you back real soon.
Thanks so much, Charles. I appreciate it. Talk soon.
All right. Take care. All right. Let's take a break. And when we come back, we're going to head to, this is a very busy Wednesday morning. We're going to go to Michael Martinez, former Obama Department of Justice attorney who had worked in the Environment Division. He's also, now he's managing senior counsel at Democracy forward. So we're going to talk about some cases that they're working on, some environmental cases. Coming up next here on Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
WURD Radio celebrates Black History Month with Black Artist Story 365, brought to you by the Pennsylvania Lottery.
Welcome to Black Artist Story 365. My name is Envy McKee. Get into this episode where we explore the art and artistry of revolutionary poet Nikki Giovanni. Yolanda Cornelia Nikki Giovanni Jr. was born in Knoxville, Tennessee to Yolanda Cornelia Sr. and Jones Gus Giovanni. In 1960, young Queen Nikki began her studies at her grandfather's alma mater, Fisk University in Nashville, as an early entrant. In 1967, she graduated with honors with a BA in history. In 1968, Giovanni attended a semester at the University of Pennsylvania and then moved to New York City. She was an active member of the Black arts movement beginning in the late 1960s. 1971's Ego Trippin' is one of Queen star Auntie Nikki's most famous pieces.
I walked to the Fertile Crescent and built the Sphinx. I designed a pyramid so tough that a star that only glows every 100 years falls into the center, giving divine, perfect light. I am bad.
1978's Cotton Candy on a Rainy Day is one of her other more noteworthy collections of poems. She and the late James Baldwin wrote a book together, did you know that? Titled A Dialogue. The two authors speak blatantly about the status of the Black male in the household. She published Those Who Ride the Night Winds in 1983. In 1988, volume Sacred Cows and Other Edibles, Acolytes, and On My Journey Now. There's also 2009's Bicycles Love Poems, Chasing Utopia, a hybrid from 2013, and that's literally just to name a few. So that's it for this episode of Black Artist Story 365. My name is Envy McKee. To hear more, tune in to The Envy McKee Show, Friday nights, 7 to 10 p.m., right here on WURD.
Black Artist Story 365 is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Lottery. Get to winning with Win-Win, the new scratch-off from the Pennsylvania Lottery, with top prizes of $500 grand. Players must be 18 or older. Please play responsibly. Benefits older Pennsylvanians every day.
Celebrate Black History Month at the virtual 29th Annual African American Children's Book Fair on Saturday, February 6th, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. To register, go to the AfricanAmericanChildren'sBookProject.org. The free event will feature authors and illustrators bringing the pages of their books to life with panels and readings. For more information, call 215-878-BOOK. Remember, a book opens up a world of opportunities.
This is not a fad for us. We will not resume our regular programming when things die down. We're not black to help our bottom line or because it's politically correct. We're not joining a fight. This has been our fight, our message, our people. Black lives have always mattered here. We are undeniably, indefatigably, unapologetically, permanently Black Talk Media. WURD. Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
Okay, welcome back to Reality Check. We are live on 96.1 FM, 900 AM in Philly proper, Greater Philly, Delaware Valley area, but beyond, throughout the nation, throughout the world. You can hear us live at WURDradio.com and WURD TV as well. Joining us by Skype from Washington, D.C. is Michael Martinez. Michael Martinez is Managing Senior Counsel for Democracy Forward, democracyforward.org for more information. Also, he is a former Department of Justice attorney, the Environment Division in the Obama Justice Department. Michael, how are you doing? Can you hear us okay? I think we hear a little noise on your end.
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. Thanks for having me.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so we hear a little noise on your end, but I just want to make sure. Might be a little echo, but we'll work through it. So talk about these. I know you all are working on environmental regulatory rollbacks during the Trump administration and looking at how to fix those. Let's talk about those kind of top line. Give us an overview of some of those very mean-spirited, regressive regulatory attacks on environmental protection that the Trump administration pushed through during those 4 years. What are some that stand out for you?
Yeah, just maybe taking one step back, Democracy Forward, for those who are unfamiliar, is an organization that started in 2017, right in the early days of the Trump administration. And the goal is really to challenge actions that we thought were unlawful under the Administrative Procedures Act generally. In that space, we had cases focused on different agencies and different subject areas. And one of our big areas was the environment. And that was because the Trump administration really took deregulation, to the extreme. And that, you can see that in the way they manage, their coal power plants. And you can see that in their attack on Obama-era emission standards. And that one is one that is ongoing, and that's a case where we're involved in order to roll back, Trump's policies that were kind of twofold in the car emission space. On the one hand, they challenge California's ability to set their own emission standards, which has been something California has been able to do for quite a long time. And on the other hand, the Trump administration rolled back some of the fuel efficiency standards that the Obama administration had put in place that were quite ambitious, and Trump just really, took a hatchet to those.
Yeah, it's definitely, we saw a lot of, interesting and very regressive, and also just really dramatic regulatory, because a lot of things too happen, right, Michael? A lot of things happen kind of under the radar of the general public. Because there's just regulations, a lot of these very obscure rules that are overseen by federal agencies, they're just not well known about. I mean, there are thousands of them, if not millions, and that have been created over the years, over the course of the duration of the American government since its existence. And so people just don't know about these things. And I guess that's one of the ways this sort of effort became so successful, is because it's just the public just didn't see it as vividly as they should have.
I think that's right. I think when the public thinks of the environment and the government, they think of EPA, first and foremost. But really, many agencies have environmental components. Even the Department of Commerce has NOAA. Interior has quite a bit of say in drilling. You can just look through each of the agencies, and there's often an environmental component, and those are often overlooked by the public. In addition to that, rulemaking has a public notice and comment feature in it that's supposed to notify the public of any changes that are happening officially. But what we saw in the Trump administration is that they did some rulemaking, but they also did a lot of more covert actions where they had the obligation under a statute to do something, and instead of saying we're no longer going to do it that way, either under statute or regulation, we're just going to not do it quietly. And that's a lot harder to challenge, because what you're seeing is agencies under the Trump administration would say the statute's still in place, the regulations are still in place, so what's the big deal? But behind the scenes, what they were doing was really turning enforcement down to a zero unofficially.
Yeah, no, that's very unfortunate. So one thing I noticed, some of the cases that you all are working on, and talk about those too, Michael, or outline those for us, the big cases that you as Democracy Forward are working on right now to prevent those rollbacks from becoming permanent. Talk about that, or outline those real quick if you could.
Yeah, well, probably the biggest one is this fuel emission case. It's called the Safer, Affordable, Fuel Efficient Vehicles Rule. So it's a bit clunky, but we refer to it as the SAFE rule. And the SAFE rule, like I mentioned, has two parts. We call it SAFE 1 and SAFE 2. And this rule kind of fits, smack dab in Biden's climate policy agenda because it affects car emissions. And that's, it's just a massive component in this system. And what Trump did was, he initially took away California's ability to set its own fuel efficiency standards. And on the part two is they looked at the Obama era fuel goals, and they said, those are too ambitious. We're going to crank those all the way back down to something that's quite minimal. So challenging this rule in court is ongoing right now. The government just filed a motion to set the first part of that in abeyance, which is kind of a stay while they review the rule in a bit more detail.
Right.
But the second part of that is still ongoing here in the DC circuit. So that's kind of the big case that's happening now. We have a part of that through our clients, the Union of Concerned Scientists. We have other cases too. We have a case challenging the ability of the Department of Interior to waive important safety requirements that deal with oil wells out in the Gulf. So as you might remember, Deepwater Horizon was this situation where an oil rig, malfunctioned, and it led to a catastrophic oil spill that went on for quite a long period of time.
Yeah.
And there are certain rules in place to address that. There's one called the well control rule. And that rule, there's a waiver process. If you could show as a company that you have certain mechanisms in place, certain equipment in order to address it on your own, you can get a waiver. You can apply for that and you can get one. That's on a case-by-case basis. What the Trump team did was they said, everyone gets waivers. You want one, you get one. Right. So there was this what we call, one of those rules where the action wasn't formally announced, the change wasn't formally announced through notice and comment, but there was this policy, nevertheless, under the radar that informed the main players. We could get a waiver if we want one.
Right.
Another case we have is one with the Audubon Society under the Coastal Barrier Resources Act. And the case there is the act protects certain parts, coastal areas that are important habitats, that are important for erosion purposes. And what the Trump team did there was they allowed individuals to go in and excavate sand. If you have a nice resort property and you need more sand, the Trump team made it easy for you to go into these sensitive areas and excavate that sand to put it onto your property. And that's just not allowed, is what we're arguing.
Yeah, yeah. I'm real curious too, and help me understand this. Why can't the new administration, the new Biden Justice Department or Biden administration lawyers, why can't they just dismiss these cases? They know that the Trump administration had no good intentions with any of these regulations. Like, just put everything in reverse. Why does everyone, including an organization like yourself, have to go through the trouble of filing lawsuits against the old administration's actions? But it's I would assume that the defendants in these cases are the current government, which is run by President Biden. So why don't they just simply dismiss these, or go to you and or go to the judge or the federal judge or the court overseeing that case and say, hey, listen, you know what? This wasn't us, and we don't agree with this. We didn't agree with this policy. Our government, our president doesn't agree with this policy. You know what? Yeah, let's dismiss this.
So I think the answer there depends on what the action was in the first place. If the Trump administration set a regulation that we disagree with, it's a lot harder to roll that back. Regulations are kind of they're sticky. They're hard to get rid of, and that requires a long process again to roll back. Kind of the same process you would take to implement. You need the same process to roll it back. Yeah. So you need notice and comments. You need you have to do quite a bit of work to do that. So that applies to this emissions case, the SAFE case, because it is a regulation. If it's just a guidance document, those are easier. If it's an undisclosed rule, even easier, because there's nothing really to roll back. It's just the agency changing gears. So I think the answer there is it depends. And also, as I mentioned earlier, these policy changes are cross-cutting through the government. It's possible that these teams that are coming in, they've been in place for a few weeks now, are just getting up to speed on what was changed, and it's not always obvious like these rules. It's unofficial policies that were kind of handed down that it might take some time to address. So we would welcome the Biden administration to address these cases, and I think our role on our side is to highlight them, to say these are problems that you don't see in the news every day. But still have an impact that you all should address.
Yeah, no, definitely. We've been talking with Michael Martinez, Managing Senior Counsel at Democracy Forward. Go to democracyforward.org. Also on social media, on Twitter, they are at DemocracyFWD. So, in fact, you'll see just occasional clips of this conversation I've had with Michael on Twitter right now, at Ellison Report, #RealityCheck. Michael Martinez is also a former Obama Department of Justice attorney in their Environment Division. So doing this good work. Thanks so much, Michael, for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll talk soon. Okay, let's take a break. When we come back, phone lines are reopened as we wrap up this Wednesday midweek edition of Reality Check. 215-634-8065 or toll free, it is 866-361-0900. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
Happy New Year, Philly. It's sincerely Sarita. The 2020 pandemic blew the roof off of life as we know it and forced us to make radical decisions once thought impossible. Many parents and grandparents turned to the option of a public cyber education. In thousands of instances, they sought assistance from the one true pioneer and industry leader in public cyber education, Commonwealth Charter Academy. Visit ccaeducate.me and exercise your right to choose a safe, hassle-free, student-focused learning environment your kids deserve. CCA delivers elite online instruction streamed directly to the safety and comfort of your living room. They provide a laptop and headset along with internet connectivity that includes financial assistance, all at no cost to families. CCA has been the gold standard in school choice for nearly 20 years. Visit ccaeducate.me and ring in 2021 with a 5-star learning experience. Again, that's ccaeducate.me.
Hi, WURD family. Beginning Monday, February 1st, Wake Up with WURD's Solomon Jones will be hosting the Big Game Trivia Contest, brought to you by Brown's Family ShopRite and the Family Business Collaborative partners Amoroso's Bakery, Dietz & Watson, and Hers Snacks. Winners of the Big Game Trivia Contest will receive a $20 gift card from Brown's Family ShopRite. Tune in February 1st and let the winnings begin. Tune in every Saturday at 4 p.m. for the Did You Know Show with host Bryant Green, right here on WURD 96.1 FM and 900 AM.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Phone lines are open. Also, don't forget to today, especially when we're in the middle of or now we're in the throes of Black History Month, go ahead and submit go ahead and apply for or get your ForWord membership today. WordRadio.com/ForWord. Doing some tongue twisting there. WordRadio.com/ForWord to learn more about your ForWord membership, how you can join the ForWord family, how you can support WURD, an institution like WURD today. So you get VIP invitations, you get WURD swag, you get the you get basically free access to the print newsletter WURD Press. You also get access to special events because we're still doing those even in pandemic. We're doing those virtually. So definitely reach out to us by going to WordRadio.com/ForWord to sign up for your ForWord membership today. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Poll out. There's a poll that's out by YouGov. About half of Americans would prefer a 2-dose vaccine over a less effective 1-dose vaccine. So about 52% of Americans would prefer a 2-dose vaccine, compared to 10% who would prefer a less effective 1-dose vaccine. About 63% of Democrats said the same, 43% of Republicans said the same, 46% of independents. A lot of independents out here just like low-key Republicans. But anyway, they said the same. So that's just some recent polling that's also come out. Also, Trendency, our good friends at Lincoln Park Strategies, Stefan Hankin, who joins us regularly here on Reality Check, and we did a national black voter poll with him or in partnership with him last year, right at the start of the 2020 election cycle. And that was WURD had partnered up with him on that. They've released something too, looking at mask wearing. Mask wearing is trending up. So I'm going to share that today soon at the BeNote.com, so people can check that, particularly if you're a subscriber. Check that out. Go to the BeNote.com for more there. And also happening right now, go to StrideEdEquity.com, and you can see for free and live, you can check out the National Forum on Education Equity. That's going on right now. Some great conversations about how we achieve full education equity. One thing I think that people are going to have to do, particularly in a place like Philadelphia, as like, you know, you have governments, you have school districts forcing people to go back to schools, people need to start questioning, okay, so what's so great about these school systems? What's so great about your school system? Like, especially Philadelphia's, right? Like, because there's this assumption that like the schools were just great. And so we got to get back to them. We got to defeat the pandemic by going back to school, just simply reopening schools, as if these schools were great places to begin with and that our kids were being educated fully, when we know that that was never the case. And people should start questioning that. I really think that there should be a mass movement of, I don't understand why, you know, as a community, see, we become very individualistic. I don't know if people have noticed that over the past 50, 60 years since the height of the civil rights movement, because we were very community oriented. So when we put our collective minds to something or onto something, and we all agreed and had a consensus that there was a wrong and injustice that was being forced upon us or wrought upon us, then we would kind of come up with a collective decision that, hey, we're all going to act as one for the most part and respond to these sorts of crises and challenges collectively as a community. We don't do that anymore. And so there is a big issue right now. Like I saw in the Philadelphia Daily News, there was a op-ed from the head of the teachers union who was like saying, well, you know, like we don't want to return to the schools, you know, until, you know, we know that there's going to be protections and there's proper ventilation in the schools, because a lot of Philadelphia schools, majority of them are very old buildings. You know, we're already dealing with all sorts of environmental conditions inside those schools before the pandemic happened. And so we don't want to go in there unless there's, you know, good ventilation, until there's, you know, safety measures, protection measures that are put in place. Well, how about we don't want to go back to the schools until, you know, they were asking this for teachers. You know, the teachers demand, like, you know, teachers want ventilation. Teachers and families want proper ventilation and, you know, safe schools. I think the bigger question is, or the bigger statement is, we don't want to go back to these schools until every family and student is ensured a full, complete, quality, and equitable education. How about that? Like, we're talking about I'm trying to figure out exactly where people's like mind is when it comes to this conversation on the miseducation of Black children in big urban school districts like Philadelphia's. Like, that should be the conversation right now. And I know that that's a conversation going on in the heads of many parents who are in the Philadelphia school system or in other big urban school districts where the cities, the districts are forcing people to go back to the school. And then there's this back and forth going on between teachers unions in places like Philly and Chicago and DC and elsewhere, and having some big, you know, there's court actions that are flying all over the place. That's the big question. Like, how about, like, you know, damn the ventilation at the moment, like, will our kids get a quality education, like a full, complete quality education where they're reading above grade level, they know how to do basic math, and they understand basic science. Full stop. Like, why isn't that the demand? Like, we're not going back to your schools until you promise us that. You know, once again, going back to that conversation with Malcolm Burnley, like, yes, politics and the public policy making process, it's a transactional game. You know, there are people making deals, negotiating deals, maneuvering, compromising, quid pro quo. You know, you do this for me, I'll do this for you. You pass my bill, I'll pass yours. And I think that now is the high time for communities in places like Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Chicago, wherever there's a big, massive urban school district that's forcing you and your child to go back to these schools in the middle of a pandemic, now's the time to be transactional, y'all. Be transactional. Like, ask that question. Can you assure us when we return to your schools that my child can read? Can you give us a quality education, a violence-free, bully-free environment? And yeah, and also, you definitely want those public health protections taken care of. You want to have the proper ventilation. You want to make sure all the children are vaccinated, as well as the teachers and everything else. But I think that that's secondary. I really do. I think that that's secondary. Of course, that has to be the case in all governments right now. Thank goodness we got an administration that understands that they have to get that done. And so right now things are very chaotic as we're trying to get those things in place and find some kind of rhythm as far as pandemic response. But I think the priority here, when you're talking about the schools, is how do we achieve, hey, school district, okay, well, if you want us back in these schools, how do we achieve a full, complete, equitable, quality education? Not having that conversation yet. Let me go to Yusuf out of Oakland. I'm sorry. Who's calling in for a reality check? Yusuf?
Yes. Earlier, you were speaking on those people that call themselves bum rushing that government building in Washington, and how they someone was supposed to try to steal some government papers or something like that.
Yeah, no, there was someone who was prosecuted. There was a woman who stormed the House Speaker's office and she stole a computer out of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's office and tried to sell it to Russian intelligence. Now she's out on bond.
Okay. That's why I wanted to speak on that. Back in the 1950s, I don't know if you was old enough to remember, the Rosenbergs, Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, were executed for doing that same very thing, selling secrets to the Russians. They were charged with treason and put to death in the electric chair at Sing Sing prison. So who
was that again? I don't remember. Refresh me on that.
Julius and Ethel Rosenberg. They were a Jewish couple. They came from Russia. And they was accused and arrested and alleged that they sold government secrets to the Russians. This was during the Cold War. You remember the Cold War, right?
1953. Yeah, that's at the height of the Cold War. Yeah.
They was accused of selling secrets to the Russian KGB, and they were put on trial, found guilty of treason, and executed at Sing Sing prison in the electric chair. Okay, so treason is a crime punishable by death. Along with it's other crimes you can be put to death for that's not murder, like kidnapping, rape, and treason is one of them. And like you were saying, how if those were people that look like me and you, their bodies would they'd be still looking for body parts on the grounds of that Capitol. So, yes, they should be charged with treason for not only just for bum rushing the place, but for stealing that computer and whatever else they're trying to do to just topple the government, as he called himself doing. So you're right about that.
Thank you for that refresh. Yeah, no, thank you for that history lesson, Yusuf, because I'm going on there now. I'm seeing that. Yeah, Julius and Ethel Rosenberg executed on June 19, 1953 at Sing Sing prison in Austin, New York. Yep. And they refused to admit any wrongdoing, too. They proclaimed their innocence right up to the time of their execution by electric chair. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's right. Like, if they're getting executed for that, what's going on with these folks? No, you're right. I appreciate that, Yusuf. Thanks for that. I'm going to put that out there, too. Let's put that out there in the Twitterverse as well. I'm going to thank you for that. It's a good reminder. So, yeah, these people are getting, like, slaps on the wrist. And we can't say it loud enough. Like, if these folks have been black, and in fact, they wouldn't even be calling it an insurrection. They'd be calling it, and they would be calling, now that they would call a full-blown insurgency. Like, all the mainstream media coverage would be like, there's a black insurgency against the U.S. government. There was a black terrorist attack. I mean, they would go, there wouldn't be any qualms or questions over the language if it had been thousands of black people attacking the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, right? But, they can't make up their minds these days. Oh, they're pro. And if you hear any media outlets, particularly locally, that are still calling these folks rioters and protesters, you need to call them out. You need to write to them. You need to, start, a whole local movement and boycott the station. Seriously. No, they were insurgents. They were terrorists. They attacked the seat of government. full stop on that, period. So, I mean, language is very powerful. And a lot of people, we still underestimate the power of language. And that's why it's important in a city like Philly where everyone is reading. Everyone is reading. That's why we shouldn't have an illiteracy crisis. The fewer literate people you have in a society, the more you have of this chaos, this anarchy, and white supremacists attacking the seat of government. The more you're going to have of that, just that's going to get worse. So you better get to it. Yeah, Philadelphia, I'm looking at you. You better get to it. You know, do something about this illiteracy crisis in the city and elsewhere. Anyway, we'll talk about that at a later point. I got to get off here. We have to go to the source with the Black Women's Leadership Council. That's coming up next, so stay tuned then. Love the Black Women's Leadership Council. They do their thing. They do their work. So keep your WURD radio dial locked in to listen to them. Want to thank Troy Wilmore as well in studio at the Board of Steel. Thank the rest of the WURD family. Once again, I want to thank Envy McKee. I love those Black Artist Story series. I love listening to those during the breaks. Highly enjoyed those. I sent her an email too, and she was like, yeah, thanks so much. I'm glad you like it. So, yeah, I really do like it, and I think it's a great series. And want to thank you, listeners, and everyone else. I'm at Ellison Report on Twitter.com, #RealityCheck. Philly and beyond, I want you to stay sharp, stay smart, but more importantly, please do stay safe out there. Please stay safe and keep everyone around you as best you can safe. I will talk to you, God willing, tomorrow, 10 a.m. sharp. We have City Council Live tomorrow. So continue to stay tuned and see you tomorrow. Take care.